All right, it's going. You hold it, because last
shit.
time
Okay.
my voice was louder and yours was softer.
Okay.
Welcome to the Thunk Tank Podcast.
Welcome back.
Thanks for downloading the podcast. We're going to try to keep this intro really short.
Yeah, so this episode we cover ghosts, the paranormal, and really looking at what's going on with that. What's up with that? Right.
Ghosts is a cool topic because it's like it intersects with all the interesting things. It's kind of similar to conspiracy theories, right?
Yeah, a little bit. We get into that too, sure. Yeah.
How to think, how to interpret information. It's also just really fascinating because, of course, it intersects with, like, you know, humans and death, and, like, I think that's the reason we're obsessed with it.
We also drink a lot.
It's also really funny, right?
Yeah,
and,
no, it's a good time.
Side note, we recorded it in a so-called haunted house.
Yes, so there's the vibe.
I will admit, when I left this episode and I was going to my car, which was right by a graveyard, I was actually shitting my pants.
You were psyching yourself out the last,
myself
half
out,
an hour, yeah. So.
And like, I remember, like, just opening my car as fast as I could and just, like, speeding out of there. Just
it didn't help that you were parked across the street from a haunted house.
And next to a graveyard.
At a church graveyard,
At a church graveyard, which is the worst kind. Because it involves, like, the weird, creepy church vibe and the graveyard vibe.
So we get into it deep.
Yeah.
It's good. And, you're going to have fun. I think you'll enjoy it. One
side note. Stick around to the end. We play this hang-up game, and I won't tell you who wins, but
it's a constant battle.
We're, you know, this podcast, we're Skyping in with Johnny, and we always play, like, you know, right around when the podcast is about to end, we play this game, which is like, who can genuinely have the interest of the other person, and then, boom, hit hang up.
Yeah.
And so, stick around to find out that. Side note, Joe and I always have a little, like, extra 10 minutes after the hang up happens.
Yeah, which is the best part, so you should stick around.
It's kind of fun. Yeah. We just, like, we get into a weird zone where we're, like, the right amount of drunk, and I can't go home yet anyways. Yeah,
so we gotta
like, legally,
wind down.
So we have to wind down and just keep talking. So check that out.
Please check out our Patreon.
Patreon.
Bonuses.
It's a way to support creative content like podcasts.
Yeah.
Patreon.com/ThunkTankPodcast. It's like $1 a month, and you get some bonuses, including, like, drunk tanks, where we're way drunker than this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I make Luke promise stuff that he may or may not do.
So check that out.
Check it out.
Otherwise, I think we nailed it.
Yeah.
We're at 2 minutes and 30. That's the best intro we've ever done.
That's the shortest.
All right, let's cut while we're ahead.
See you in the tank.
Peace.
Attention, humans. This is a Thunk Tank. Please insert this podcast directly into your nearest orifice for viewing pleasure.
Okay, you ready? Oh, shit.
Welcome to the Thunk Tank. Welcome to the Thunk Tank.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Come into our Thunk Tank.
Luke, don't switch to the other peanuts.
Welcome to the Thunk Tank. Come in the tank. We're thinking, and we're drinking,
and we're thunked.
Oh my god, I'm probably more beer than man if we go far enough back at this point. Alright, cue it. Okay.
Alright, it's going, guys.
Ooh. So I'm drinking a double IPA from Casita Cerveceria, which is a gypsy brewery, which means they don't have location. They kind of just brew on other people's systems.
But they're not gypsies? Or they are gypsies?
I mean, you can be. You don't have to be, though.
It's not a prereq?
No.
Okay.
This is Duck Rabbit Craft Brewery in Farmville, North Carolina did this one. But he's been going all up and down the East Coast, this guy. This is called Kingdom of Clouds, a fluffy double IPA with oats, wheat, and lactose.
What's that, like a fluffy mouthfeel?
Yeah, Simcoe, Amarillo, Citra, and Equinox hops. 8.2%.
Nice.
Very good.
Love them
Simcoe
Simcoe hops.
I have another Casita beer, their Imperial Stout, for later. It's a bourbon barrel-aged stout with coffee, cocoa nibs, and vanilla. And he did this one at Hill Farmstead.
Are you letting that, like, warm up a bit or something?
Yeah, I just pulled it out of the fridge, so I figure by the time I'm ready for a second beer.
In about 2 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm.
Well, welcome to the Thunk Tank.
That's a fast turnover.
This is... Wait a second.
Drum roll.
Ooh.
This is welcome to the Spook Tank.
This is our episode on ghosts.
Yeah, we're getting ghosty with this one.
Now, there's a few reasons why this is particularly scary.
I would say scary is the best way to describe
I just
it.
parked my car right, basically adjacent to a graveyard.
Next to a church, so there's a lot of things in play.
And
terms
we're
of vibes.
in...
Is it closer to the church or the graveyard?
Both. That's
Which
the
is it
that's the
closer-
problem.
It's closer to the graveyard.
Ah, fuck. Yeah, you're done.
Yeah.
The problem is that there's a hill at the
So
beginning
the
of the
zombies
graveyard.
will just fall out of the mud.
They'll just slide right out into the street, and then we're the first target, actually.
I mean, if you get a good rain, yeah.
Yeah, if it's a good muddy rain and you have a zombie seance or however the fuck that works, it's over.
Not
Mm-hmm.
only that, but am I right, Joe, that this house has been described by some as haunted, the one we're in right now?
I would say that it is not just described as haunted, but it is, through the years, been characterized as haunted, because this house is actually pre-America. It goes back
It's
to
an
like,
old one, yeah.
I think it's 1753 or something like that. So there's definitely been some. I mean, who knows what
What's
has
with
gone
that,
on
though?
in
The
these
older
walls.
that a house is, the more people are like, ooh, it's haunted.
Well, think
Well,
about
that's
it. Like,
that's why you can't go anywhere in the Middle East without just ghosts falling over each other. You know,
Wait, why
Or
the Middle-
Eastern
'cause it's-
Africa, because that's where people have been longer than anywhere
yeah,
else. you
cradle
know?
of civilization. You're right.
Yeah, but why are ghosts always from, like, Victorian era, like, England?
Oh, I think that was just a vibe. You know, like because that's
I know why, though. That's when spiritualism kind of got its start, you know?
Well, I think actually when you say Victorianism, that's interesting.
I made that word up. I mean, I didn't make it up, but I don't know if that's exactly the right name of the time period or whatever.
Well, I think
Just threw it out
I
there.
think that was like the pushback against it, actually, where they were like, "Oh, we have electricity now and like street lights. Like you don't need to worry about ghosts, but you can choose to still do that, right?"
Yeah, I mean, so this concept of, like, spiritualism started, I think, in the late 1800s, where people started to have, like, seances and
Yeah, but weren't
people
they always
claimed
doing
they could
that?
talk to the dead.
People have always been doing that, though.
Well, so the
different
thing I
ways.
think that made it different was that science was getting better and better, and so
Right,
it was
especially like
actual
medicine,
scientists.
right?
Well, that
part,
too.
Part of it too is a decent amount of hucksterism and
Oh, snake
with,
oil salesman.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and with globalization, people think of as a current thing, but it you know that shit started in the 1600s. But the 1800s, when the English really got it cooking, with a lot of trade between the Far East and the Far West.
Yeah, they had
so you had
factories
a
and
lot
shit.
of weird occult stuff coming out of the East. A lot of people, it's a vase. Oh, it's not just a vase; it's a haunted vase that some guy. You know what I mean? A story sells better than the item. So I think a lot of it just came out of that too.
Have you ever bought a haunted vase?
Is that an
really?
Always Sunny reference?
They have a haunted vase? I don't remember that episode.
I listened to a few podcasts just while driving around teaching today.
Yeah.
And the names that came up a lot, especially from this time period, were Harry Houdini.
From like the Victorian late
Well, just
1800s
from like,
vibe?
I mean, Harry Houdini was a bit later, but just magicians in general are often on the front of the skeptic movement. That's like
Oh, like Penn and Teller.
because
Penn and
because
Teller
they
is a
were-
perfect example.
yeah.
in the 1800s, they were like what professional wrestling was in the 70s. Like people thought they had real magic for a while, and then it turned, it's actually just like sleight of hand tricks. But then it was like, well, it's still entertaining for that value. But I feel like there's a time where magicians kept their secrets, and people like were uneducated enough. We're like, did that guy really just cut that chick in half? And he's like, yeah, you saw it, didn't you?
Right.
So I
level-
like that analogy that they're the WWE guys of the 1800s.
That's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah.
So Houdini and others like him actually were...
Do you know he died of AIDS?
That's
I thought he died of...
No,
of-
that's 100% true.
it
Thank
is?
you. Go on with your point, Lou.
Yeah, no, Johnny
I
said
thought
it.
he died of like a ruptured appendix.
Yeah, he got hit by a cannonball or something in the stomach.
No, there's a better story to that. But finish your point, and I'll tell you how he actually died. I just like to say that about AIDS.
Stay
'cause
tuned.
It's inappropriate.
It's too soon, Johnny. Stay
Sorry.
tuned, ladies and gentlemen, and you'll hear the true story.
So, as far as I understood, he was a genuine explorer of the spiritual realm,
Houdini?
Houdini.
Yeah.
And so, like, a lot of these guys went into it with genuine energy of, like, let me try and figure out if there's something here. And then he became a debunker and a skeptic. So he would go around and he would send his assistant undercover into these seances and then call out bullshit. In fact, it led him, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the author of
great,
Sherlock Holmes.
Great Tonight Show on
him
CBS.
and Houdini were
and The Lost World, another great story.
Yeah, but go on.
Him and Houdini were apparently enemies because Conan Doyle's wife was one such medium who claimed to be able to talk to the dead. So she tried a seance with Houdini so that Houdini could talk to his dead mother.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you know? She started getting some messages, right? Ooh, saying this, saying that. Only problem was Harry Houdini had a different name, Eric. That was his real name. And the other problem was his mother only spoke to him in German.
So you're saying Harry Houdini was a liar?
So ghosts can't... I guess when you
ghosts
die...
could translate for you.
Yeah.
So you get like an auto-translate package when you become a ghost?
Probably.
Dude,
I would assume so.
Yeah, you could transmit through time and space instantaneously. You're both energy and matter, but neither at the same time. You think, I can't translate that to English.
See, that's what I fucking hate about this, though. It's like any skeptic claim you make, you could just be like, dude, ghost. Like, you could just come back with, dude, they're ghosts. They can do anything.
Well, because you can't disprove
But why would she
ghosts.
speak in German if she wanted to connect with her son?
Because she didn't feel like it.
Because she knew that the seance lady
Come on, you
didn't
can do
speak
better than
German.
that, Joe.
No, I'm
No,
starting here. I'll work my way.
Because
Don't worry.
if she started talking to the seance lady in German, the woman would just think she went insane and would probably go mad and kill herself.
Yeah,
See, that's the thing about you can't debunk ghosts because you can't debunk ghosts. You can debunk somebody's claim about what they're getting or connection to them, but you can't prove ghosts don't exist.
Well,
unless you figure out math.
You can debunk them as a conduit to ghosts for sure.
Right? Yeah, you can call out scammers and what's his name? The Amazing Randy is the best at it. The videos of him just calmly doing it to people is so good. There's one that it's just like, and you watch these people that are obviously like scamming or something. Like the moment, my favorite is the moment before he catches them. One was this guy like thought he could use like a rare type of nickel to sense where a ball was hidden under these cups.
Yeah, check.
He's like, okay, well, there's
What a
7
useless
cups.
skill.
Yeah, he's like, normally,
not if you have a magic show.
But like the guy did the math. He's like, all right, so you do a whole thing. Like statistically, you should find it by the third or fourth one. So if you're guessing randomly, so let's see.
Right.
Or you should get it, by the third. And the guy got it on like the 5th one. He's like, so what's wrong with your nickel? It's just amazing because he doesn't do like the gotcha. He's just like, so what do you have to say for yourself?
He's like, even as a magician, you could do way better than that.
So the Amazing Randy would offer, I think it was like $1 million to anyone that could prove legitimate.
It's the James Randi Foundation. Yeah,
it's a legit thing. It's not just some millionaire offering money he doesn't, or some guy offering money he doesn't have. Like it's a real foundation. I think that.
Yeah, he's genuinely like what I like about these guys is that they're genuinely saying we don't know if ghosts or anything in that spiritualism kind of vibe exists. We're genuinely curious if it does, but we're highly skeptical of anybody that claims to be able to talk to the dead, anybody that claims any of that shit, but we'll give you $1 million if you can prove it.
Well, that seems fair enough. I mean, the burden of proof is always on somebody who's claiming something that nobody else can certainly directly observe.
That's not replicatable. Yeah, if you can't replicate the best is this guy could turn pages in a phone book without touching it, and he's just blowing at it like with his mouth closed.
Yeah.
And Randy figures that out.
He's
obviously,
a charlatan.
So he puts something in like a piece of plastic in the way, and the guy's like, "It's not working. It's blocking my energy." He's like, "Okay," like he was ready for that.
Yeah.
Because these guys are all trying to get money out of him. That's why they're like, even though they know they might get called out and found out for being a scam artist, they might make some money out of it.
I would try far worse for $1 million.
It's a good risk. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, what are you gonna do? Not make money and be a charlatan? Like,
yeah,
that's not why.
That's
you
the
get
whole
into that
point
game.
of becoming a charlatan.
He takes those styrofoam packing peanuts and sprinkles them in front of the guy, so like they're super light. So any air he blows they'll move, and you can see he kind of tries to do it.
He tries to blow like less hard.
And one kind of tries to move a little bit, and so he stops and he like has to like rub his hands and stretch and like do his whole thing. And he's like, it's not working because of the static electricity coming off the peanuts. The guy's like, well, that's not how electricity works.
That's also a hell of a sentence.
Yeah, he's like, that's not. Like the guy tried to use science to it was so good though, and the guy was just like, I can't do it because of the peanuts. He's like, okay, sure, you don't get the money now,
right?
And like everyone could make up their own mind. Obviously, the guy didn't have magic powers. If circus peanut or if packing peanuts can stop your powers, they're not that good of powers.
It's probably a pretty weak influence that you're exerting at that point.
Right, you don't have that
packaging peanuts
strong
are
of
your
a
bane.
link.
Yeah,
to
like
the
he probably felt
spiritual
too embarrassed
realm.
to even say, "Oh no, it's the packing peanuts blocking my psychic power."
Well, that's actually interesting you bring that up too, because I think there's an interesting line between kind of just like not unsolved mysteries, but like unsolved or unexplainable or unexplained power so far, right? Like with enough time, we've talked about this, the God of the Gaps, where eventually over time a lot of this, might get explained, but
the unknown in general,
right? And there was this show, I forget what channel it was on, but it was like it was called something along the lines of real life superheroes or something like that. And
I remember that.
Yeah, and it had these people, and one of the guys was this Russian guy who...
I knew that. That was the one I was going to bring up.
Yeah, he's like the Magneto guy.
Oh, his spoons stick to his face, right?
Or like just pieces of metal. He can make them stick to his skin, and he can't do it with non-metallic items. Like, he can't do it with wood. But it's not
so
like...
that's the first step of science, right? It's like, why only metal?
Well, that's what I mean. Like, he's not doing an act. Like, he's not putting on a show. He's just a guy where, like, metal kind of sticks to him.
He's like a farmer or something.
Yeah,
right?
he's just some
He's
weird
not
Russian
Magneto or anything.
guy. He's the closest thing we have, though.
He can just
Could be
cover
his
himself in
grandfather,
spoons.
But here's the thing: I see something like that, and I think, okay, there's clearly some sort of weird, bizarro scientific explanation to that, right? The question is something that rare and something that is that much of an anomaly. That's difficult to replicate, right? Because as far as I know, I've never seen anybody else who can do something like that. So
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely unique. So
yeah,
but so even if it were crazier than that, even if he was doing something
Right.
crazier than sticking spoons to himself, it's an unknown.
Right.
And in the circles of these skeptics, it's what you call an argument from ignorance. This kind of
what
calls
is?
back to our conspiracy theory episodes, because it kind of, if you zoom out on the topic
Yeah.
of ghosts, you get back to the same core principles of how to think, that we did in
Yeah.
conspiracy theories. But an argument from ignorance, let's say you walk into a house and some crazy shit happens, right? A bunch of books fall off the bookshelf, and the one that opens says, like, die on the page or something like
666
that.
like a million times.
It's like, fuck, that would scare me, no doubt.
Yeah.
But that's an unknown phenomenon. To now say that's a ghost, you're now saying, I don't know why the bookshelf fell, so it's a ghost. So you took an I don't know sentence and then made it an I know what it is sentence.
But I think it's also important to define something that we haven't done. I don't know if it's important to define, but what exactly do we mean by ghost?
Great question.
Right? I feel like a lot of people probably have, and maybe not different, but variations on that definition exactly.
So I didn't do any research at all for this, but I do know like some historical stuff about ghosts.
Well,
and things.
that's a useful place to start for sure, I think.
Before we get into the history thing, can I just play a 30-second clip of Neil Tyson just laying out what we just said? He says a really cool way of putting this, which keeps the open mind of maybe ghosts exist,
Yeah.
but just puts it in a... This is a quick clip from the David Pakman Show. He's a pretty good YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah,
independent.
I love Pac-Man. It's great.
Let's see here.
I'm really good at it. I almost set the high score in Denver.
Frame my reference point, motherfucker.
I was like... All right, no.
Sorry, I got excited there. Go ahead, Joe.
It's fine.
What are you drinking,
Oh,
Joe?
this guy sounds like a dick.
Oh, I'm not hearing anything.
Oh, you don't hear this, Johnny?
I'm drinking
No.
Green Flash.
Let me make sure.
What's Green Flash?
Oh, it's a great West Coast brewery. I think they're in... Where are they? San Diego, maybe? San Francisco? One of the Sands.
Sorry, Johnny,
What?
I had your auxiliary thing turned down for this. So he
Cool.
just said one of his producers happened to mention one time that like he believes in the paranormal. And so, by the way, this was funny because he had Neil Tyson on his show, which was probably a big get for him. This was years ago before his channel took off.
Yeah.
And
Anytime
way-
you can get Nelly Ty.
the way
that's
Neil
big.
Tyson answers it is sort
For sure.
of like puzzled. He's like, you going to throw anything harder at me? Like that
Yeah.
kind of answer. So here it is.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Still nothing, Johnny?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing slight technical difficulties. Please bear with us as we beer. That was good, right?
That's really good. I
was
really
good.
like that.
Yeah.
Luke, you got to isolate that, and we got to use that clip in our intro.
Well, we should save that clip for whenever we need it, which is probably fairly often. But yeah, Green Flash, great brewery.
What kind of beer?
I have the It's called West Coast IPA, so it's
Cool.
it's like a double dry hop, I think. Pretty hoppy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Still nothing,
Cool.
Johnny?
A
Otherwise, I'll
business
just...
of a snake oil salesman.
Now I get it.
Okay.
If you can take a paranormal phenomenon into the laboratory and show that it's repeatable, there's a word for what that is. It's called science. So, repeatable paranormal phenomena is science. If it's not repeatable, it's not science. It's something else. So, that's it. So
I love that. But he just goes like, that's it.
But that's fair enough because that's the realm in the world that he deals in. Like it's
Yeah, and all he said, which is the safest way for a
Bullshit.
scientist to speak, is he said, if you can take whatever paranormal phenomenon you're describing, bring it into the laboratory, and show that it's repeatable between many different situations, what you have is science,
yeah.
not pseudoscience.
I gotta give Neil deGrasse Tyson a little bit of a bullshit alert on this one.
That's fine.
Because,
Go for it.
first of all, I got a couple problems with this. One,
He's a pretty big guy, dude. He's taller than you.
No,
Careful.
Shut up, Nelly Ty. Listen to
Yeah.
Johnny Genie. All right.
shut up and listen to my totally unqualified fucking college dropout opinion on this. all
I
right?
have a college professor opinion on this too. When you're
Yeah,
done,
you
So
run a planetarium.
we can balance. We
It's
can
all
balance
right.
out, Johnny. It's fine.
How come I went twice, 3 years apart, same show at the planetarium? Get it together, Mr. Media Man.
All right,
Yeah,
Johnny.
Mr.
Of
Hall of the
science.
Universe, Tyson.
Yeah. If you're supposed to be science liaison to entertainment and pop culture, you could do more than just the Dark Matter show every 5 years. Maybe come up with something new.
You're
That's
isolating
not
a
my
lot of
first
our
issue.
audience.
Yeah, Johnny, you're, all right. Get to, what's your critique
I
of...
actually love Neil Tyson. I just wanted to say, one, I know a few scientists because my wife's a scientist. So I've talked to real scientists, and a lot of what gets published and what gets grants is bullshit stuff that isn't real hard science.
That's true.
I'm not saying that means ghosts are real. I'm just saying the laboratory system, it's kind of bullshit to say just because it hasn't been done in a lab yet. It's not.
Oh,
out
no,
there.
it's
There's
been
no money
tried
in
to
it.
be done in a lab. It just hasn't
I'm
been
just-
shown to be
I'm
repeatable.
just saying. Right, and it's
He's just
it might
saying.
not be
That's a
worth
Neil Tyson
testing.
thing, Johnny. You
Yeah.
just pulled one of his cards. He always says, I'm just saying. I'm just
I'm
saying.
just saying.
That's also a
and that's the other
conspiracy
thing.
theorist
That's
card.
the other thing.
Yeah.
He's the
Yeah.
guy that goes around being like, yeah, I've heard him say the same thing about aliens. Like, just bring him in the lab. Or the town square. Bring him in, this and that. But he's a fucking astrophysicist. Isn't most of their shit, like, theoretical and on paper? Has he ever actually, like, tested a rocket in a lab? Or is it just, like,
Dude,
mathematical models?
You
and
of all
computer
people,
models?
Elon Musk just launched a rocket into space with a car. Like, we know
Right,
rocket...
so I trust Elon's science more than Tyson's. Like, he
well,
tells
it's-
me the stars
nobody
are
owns
doing
science.
what.
Science is just the
Science is a method.
the
No,
objective
yeah.
I'm pretty
truths
sure
that
Elon
emerge.
Musk is owning electric cars right now.
He's sleeping
owning
on the
that
floor
shit.
of the Tesla factory right now. Did you read that?
He is. Yeah, he's living there.
He's living there. He refuses to go home. He refuses to
Is
shower.
that true right now?
That's what they're saying because they're so far behind production, and he's like, we got to get this done. So
And
he's
if
just,
he has to, if there's any wait time to get in touch with him before they can make a decision, they'll get further behind. So he's just,
Yeah.
he's
Damn.
just going
Yeah.
balls out.
I do have something to mention though about.
I don't actually have a problem with Neil Tyson.
Well, I was
just wanna say.
gonna say based on sort of I think this divide or not divide but just kind of gap between science is something that is like an experiment that you can do in a lab, right? So I had a student a few years ago, and she tried to write her research paper on basically why Ouija boards were real.
They are real. I've seen them.
I've seen them too, and
Boom, done.
I was like, "That's
Next one.
well."
Buy them on Amazon. They'll be at your house at
The
2
problem
days.
is
Bam.
that's not enough for an argumentative research paper with scientific evidence, right? So I said, I warned her. I was like, this is going to be really difficult because I'm not quite sure what you're trying to prove. And she said, "Oh well, I got to do research and blah blah." And I said to her, "I don't know if you'll be able to find the quality of research that you think you'll be able to find, but if you want to go for it, like." Tell me what your thesis winds up being, and maybe we can move from there, because I'm not quite sure what your thesis, which is the idea that you're trying to prove, is. So she just went for it, and basically she wrote this paper on... And students, I allow them to do all sorts of things. Like if you want to do a paper on, why we should do this with alternative energy, or, this with, medical research or whatever.
But part of your job is also to say, hey, I want to save you hours of research because you're not going to find
this
what
is
you
dead
think
end.
you're going to find.
Yeah. Well, you're not going to find what you think you're going to find in terms of being able to prove something to people, right? Or to readers or whatever. So she wound up writing this paper, and it was all about how Ouija boards. The longer version of it is what Ouija boards purport to do is actually true. So they're able to convey messages from the spiritual realm or something like that. And part of my assignment for doing an argument research paper is you have to not only present arguments, but you have to substantiate them with what we would call like scholarly research, peer-reviewed research.
Peer-reviewed, yeah.
Yeah, sure. And even if you don't do peer-reviewed research, at least like very like valid, verifiable research. And I went through her paper, and I sat down with her, and I said, "This is I told her I'm not going to grade
What
this."
kind of sources did she use?
Like people's blogs, where it was like anecdotal evidence, right? So it was like, oh yeah, so and so did this. They claim that they were communing with their deceased mother, and they claim that
And they seemed really serious about it.
All these messages were like, oh yeah, they mentioned FIFO the dog, and this and that, and I said,
Spirit World.
and I said to her, what makes you think that's true? And she said, well, it was on this blog. And I just repeated the question. I said, what makes you think that's true?
Sure.
And she's like, well, why wouldn't it be? And my question was, well, why would it be? Right. And again, I said, not that it's, maybe it is true, but the burden of proof is on you if you're trying to prove to me something that I don't already believe. Right. So I don't have a problem with you believing in Ouija boards. If you believe in Ouija boards, great. Like, go to town. Like, I have no problem with that. But in terms of trying to convince like a skeptic, you need more clearly than just experiential evidence based on whoever else. And that's fine if you want to do that, but
that's the whole point of science, though, is the study is supposed to be really a repeatable set of guidelines with results so that you could test it yourself.
Hey, that sounds like something Neil Tyson would say, Johnny.
Well, that's kind of one of the arguments again.
I'm not anti-science,
but isn't that one of the arguments that somebody
would
would use is that, well, whatever's going on in the paranormal spiritual realm is not purposefully non-replicatable, but it's just like, it's so something that we can't comprehend that of course it doesn't adhere to like the standard laws of physics.
I will say
right?
it's not science.
But Joe,
fair enough. I have no problem with that. Yeah.
Period. Full stop.
If you're a linguistics program at some university somewhere that is published and considered credible in that field or whatever, you start giving out grants for Ouija boards and ghost languages.
Well, this is why I made her rewrite her paper.
Yeah, because you can't cite other people saying the same thing as you.
Right.
That's
a problem.
Anecdotal evidence. That's what Alex Jones does. He has all his papers,
among other things.
I want to hear what Alex Jones says about Ouija boards. Actually,
and those are his sources. All the papers. He's got all his sources right there in front of him, and they're all fucking. Most of them are fucking InfoWars articles from his company, and it's like that's not
how that
source.
works.
Yeah.
So
Dude,
in the skeptic community, it's what they call a null hypothesis. It means we start
you and your fancy academic speak
with no conclusion. I'm not going out. So there are a lot of genuine ghost hunters, and by genuine I mean
on reality television.
No. I don't mean that. We'll get into that because that's fucking crazy. These fucking guys that go in with
you get a depth finder and then you hang a dream catcher on it.
Well, they choose anything that seems scientific.
Now you can find ghosts.
Like a Geiger counter for radiation, an infrared camera, or an electromagnetic whatever reader. It's like, okay, what makes you think that means anything you detect is a ghost? You're walking through a fucking house filled with electrical wires, filled with heat signatures. Did you know if you stand in front of a wall and then walk away for up to 10 minutes, I think, your heat signature will stay in the shape of a body on that wall. That doesn't mean that that's a ghost when you see it. It means that somebody stood there recently.
What if you stood there long enough for the ghost to find you?
Oh, okay, possible. Dude, the funniest thing was I heard this. I listened to a few podcasts, a few pro-ghost podcasts that were very
pro-ghost. I love
just
that.
Where are you, Luke? Pro or anti-ghost? Go. Lightning round.
I'm
pro or
anti.
Against? Anti. Okay, back to your question.
I'm pro-ghost.
So
I don't know about you.
You guys would crack up. I'm not even going to try and find this audio, but it was this apparently haunted house in Queens, New York, And so this ghost
I
hunter
totally
guy
believe that.
sounded like he was a construction worker by day and a ghost hunter by night. And he just had that thick, like, New York-y, like, Staten Island-y accent.
Yeah, what are you going to do? Ghosts going to be ghosts.
And so he goes in the basement with this podcast person who's, like, making a thing about ghost hunting. And then he's like, I'll show you how you do it. So you basically you turn on this machine and then you ask it questions and you see if it gives any answers. And the girl's like, what? And he goes, so ghost, like, what time period are you from? It was like the 1500s, maybe 1400s. I'm like, 1400s? You think this house existed in Queens in the 1400s, you jackass? Also, why do you think it spoke English? Also, like, how's it going to answer you? Because all his fucking machine did was went like, and he was like,
And
see?
wouldn't it
You
be
see?
wouldn't it be
Yeah.
a Native
Ducks are real.
American? Wouldn't it be a Native American ghost that was like, "Fuck you guys, you killed."
Like
killed
in the
all-
basement of his
you killed
teepee
me."
or something?
Yeah, it doesn't make.
Yeah,
sense.
I don't know if I'm into the whole, like,
Ghost hunting?
no, like the whole thing that people get into with, like, negative spirits and negative energy. That seems like a bit much to me. Like,
But that's kind of where the idea of ghosts originate from.
well, sure, they're like leftover spirits or like tortured spirits or whatever. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, that's
what's
that's certainly
interesting
one
is
version of it.
every mythology has its own ghosts, and they also have their
Yeah,
own versions. They
sure.
all seem to have the class of ghost, like demon or like zombie. Those are all different.
Actually, I was asking my girlfriend
connected.
about this from Turkey. I was just like, hey, do you guys have ghosts? Is it part of your culture? And she
Are
was
there
like,
ghosts in Turkey?
well, first I said, do you believe in ghosts? And she was like, fuck, what? And so the words they have for ghosts are kind of very Western-y like concepts, but they do have
that's
a word
interesting.
that's like in their culture for demon.
Oh, that's really
So,
interesting. Yeah.
what is it? Starts with an S, right?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh,
so
that's a
there's-
letdown.
But
I
you
won't
guys, I
dare
know how
utter
much
it.
everybody.
I was gonna say, don't utter it in this house.
Yeah.
I know everybody loves the Genie so much, but do you know where they come from?
Robin
I have
Williams.
an inkling of like the dark arts of genie
So-
wizardry.
So in the Quran, actually in the Quran, which is what 700s.
Oh shit!
AD?
It stems from then. Really?
Well, I don't know if it stems from it, but it's in there. The Jinn, they were called Jinn, and they were not necessarily evil. They were like, the way like any pantheon of gods is. Look at Olympus or
Is it kind of
the
like
Nor-
the
or
Q continuum? They're just kind
Asgard.
of like bored.
Kind of, but there's good ones. There are different classes. There were just like mischievous genies that would fuck with
okay.
you. the way
And then
I
there's like
would.
benevolent ones.
And then there's ones that you would call devils or demons that
I see.
are like trying to actively like find a way onto this plane just to cause trouble.
right.
There's a word, by
and-
the way, plane.
And they got made in different ways, and so you had to be careful.
fuck does that
Jinns
mean?
like to take the forms of like dogs.
They
and
like to take
snakes.
Wait,
the-
genies could take the forms of animals?
Yeah, that's how they would visit.
That's
people.
true. I remember I saw.
Whoa.
I thought I saw Johnny as a
I'm
Billy
never going to
Goat
look at a
genie
dog
once.
the same way.
True. Well, so the common forms were dogs and snakes, which, if you think about it, makes sense. A dog is sort of like a natural force that we've tried to deal with, kind of harness. Like they're like by
Domesticate, you mean?
domesticating. Yeah. So they're generally
that's
good.
true.
Like they're generally on our side, but that's not a guarantee. You gotta. There's still some just natural.
They have
power
mouths
there,
filled with
force of
sharp
nature
knives.
there. Yeah, that they
That
can
checks
decide
out.
to use. And then if you look at snakes, aren't a big deal for most people that are going to hear this podcast. But everything's paved now. Just think about before. All shoes were open, and you was always walking on the ground. Like snakes were a way bigger problem than they are now.
Yeah, we
so,
forget
like-
how big of a problem they used to be for sure.
Well, I mean,
So
now
the
we're not.
history
I'm more
of-
worried about
of-
ghosts than snakes, like in the upstairs of this house right now.
I gotta say that's good living.
I've seen snakes at that property. Little ones though. Little.
I know, but they don't
gardener
come
snakes.
upstairs.
Yeah, but I'm less afraid of a garden snake than I am of a ghost. But then again, I'm not even afraid of ghosts. I don't understand why people are.
I used to be afraid
ghosts.
of ghosts. I used
If
to.
I
Be.
ain't afraid of a
honestly, if
ghost.
I saw a ghost, I would.
What would you do?
I think I would be like, wait, don't go. I have many questions. Because why would you freak out? Why wouldn't you be like, hey, what's
I don't
going on?
know what I would do, but certainly, like, I would have the fight or flight, freeze kind of.
I think that's
adrenaline
really
hit,
the question. Yeah,
and then it's
What
like,
would
what
you
do I do from there? If it truly is a ghost, what am I going to do? Run? They
Well, let
just
me
go
ask
through
you.
walls
Let
and
me
shit.
ask you this. I think this is something that we should do. Also, do any of us have ghost stories?
I think me and Johnny have one. It's not ultimately a real ghost story, but to our drunk 20-year-old allegedly 20-year-old brains.
That was I think that's my closest encounter.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't have one.
I mean, so you do have one. We could drop that one. I used to always tell it as a ghost story by adding a sneak ending to it just to make it more fun.
Well, you just ruined it, but yeah, tell it.
Well, I mean, look, I'm obviously taking the
that's
skeptic
not how you
angle
set
here,
things up,
but and I was probably even more skeptic oriented when I was younger.
Yeah.
But like now, I sort of try to appreciate like the fun creativity. Like there's a thing called skeptic burnout, they call it, when you become too skeptical.
Yeah.
And so like there
Like
are these
cocaine?
genuine ghost hunters. The most famous one, his name is Joe Nickel, and he goes to these places and he thinks to himself, somebody called me in because they said, we think there's a ghost here. So I'm going to genuinely try and find a ghost. And he genuinely tries to find one. And he's the first to say, I would love to find a ghost. Unfortunately, I have yet to find one. Mm-hmm. I've always found better explanations, like mold, like carbon monoxide, like infrasound, which is sound that you can't hear, but that like fucks with your brain or your eyeballs and shit like that.
Radon poisoning.
Radon poisoning, which is a great fan theory for The Office.
Yeah, that's deep. That's getting in heavy.
What?
There's a theory for the American Office that, because they always show Toby trying to put the radon poisoning
Oh, and Michael Scott throws them out.
detectors or whatever, and Michael always throws them out. And they all just kind of lose their mind the whole fucking show until like even Jim and Pam are just like loser idiots who like don't make any sense.
Well, if you start watching the show from the beginning, it's like, yeah, they're just kind of, even Kevin is kind of slow, but by the end of the show,
he's like insanely slow by the end.
He's like incapacitated slow.
So what's the theory, that they're dead and there have been ghosts this whole time?
Of course.
No. I don't
that's
think it's that. I
absolutely
think it's just that
100% what it
they're
is.
slowly dying. I brought that up because there was a family that thought their house was haunted, and pretty much everybody was like, holy shit, is this shit happening to you? Like, you know, you're home alone and or you wake up in the middle of the night and you see these figures and blah, 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 all these hallucinations, which it turned out to be hallucinations because there was a very mild carbon monoxide poisoning going on. Not enough to die in your sleep, let's say.
But to fuck you up.
Enough to make you hallucinate. And people think, well, what are the chances they would hallucinate ghosts? It's like, that's what hallucinations are. It's the projections of your mind not being properly curbed by reality,
All
right?
So that's why if I saw a ghost, I'd freak out because my first thought would be like, fuck, my brain broke somehow.
Yeah, I'd
What
be like,
happened?
oh, like it could be a tumor,
All right.
right?
Because my brain doesn't function like that. I don't,
I don't usually see ghosts.
hallucinate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have one.
So if I started hallucinating,
I have
assume
one.
that
I have
that's
one
what
for
it
you
is.
that I think it's a good exercise to kind of break down, because I'm able to break it down into a few different categories in terms of like asking myself what is actually happening here. So I saw this show once, and it was basically going through very similar stories, and the one that stood out to me because I feel like it's the type of story that there's probably a ton of, and some of them are definitely phony, but it makes me wonder how many of them maybe are true. And if they are true, then the question is that just a weird random coincidence, or is it something more? So basically the story was that this like young family moved into this house, right? And they had a young child, like 5-6 year old child or whatever. And whatever, your typical random ghost shit was going on, like shit
But was it
falling
all
off the
set
walls.
up with the perfect ghost details, like family goes to the secluded house after leaving the city, and cell service doesn't exist, and like it's a weird, creepy town? Like,
No, it was just like a house in Detroit, like
okay,
whatever. And so yeah, all of those things you said. And sorry, Detroit listeners.
yeah, I'm sure we have a Detroit listener. Sorry.
No, Nathan bashed them pretty hard that one episode.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, I think we lost like our 2 Detroit listeners, but we would love to have you back.
Yeah, please.
8
Yeah,
Mile
here's
for
cool
life.
too.
Like,
baby.
share, and subscribe.
So anyways, this family like moved into the house or whatever, and like your typical ghost shit was going on, like, windows banging open and stuff flying off the walls and, seeing whatever. But the one that like really broke the camel's back for them was
I just love how you say typical ghost shit. Like, what typical ghost shit? Come on. Like,
You know, all
You're
running the mill.
standard ghostliness.
Yeah, the walls bleeding red blood.
yeah,
and-
that's like you said, like
Yeah.
windows
Doors
opening. I'm like,
opening on
that
their
happens
own.
to me all the time. I don't call
yeah.
it.
I opened my window earlier to air out, the room, but and then finally their son or whoever was like kept like playing with an imaginary friend, and I forget the imaginary friend's like name, but it was something like very distinct.
Pablo.
It was Pablo. Yeah, that was it.
Good guess, man.
Paquito Pablo Escobar, and he kept telling them like, oh, it's my friend, whatever. And they were at first they were like, oh, that's cute, but like he kept bringing it up, and then he mentioned one day like, oh yeah, like so and so died. I forget. I should have looked back into this, but so and so died in a very specific way. I think he was like murdered or something really rando. And it was like, oh yeah, like so and so, my dead friend, because like whoever like killed him. And so the mother was like, that's freaky as hell, and all this other shit's going on. So she went down to the town county.
How old was this kid?
Like 5 or 6. Or
Okay,
whatever.
so he was just innocently saying like, oh, it's my friend,
Well, his imaginary friend, yeah. And so
which kids have too, I guess, right?
oh yeah, they totally do, yeah. And so she went down to the records office or whatever and found out that like in
Don't go to the records office.
never go to the
No.
records office unless you're ready. And she found that there was like in the records a kid by that
Ghosts?
name. The ghost just came out of
That's
the
just-
file
And
cabinet.
all the drawers just started opening and closing. Ooh.
That's a great way to just like make the story like you could have made it awesome and just be like she went to the record office and ghosts. The end.
Never guess. Bill Murray was there filing for a permit for a deck.
And he had this
Crazy,
box
right?
with a hose attached to it. I don't know what the fuck was going on. And
So what did she find at the filing office?
so she found a record of a kid by that name in like the 50s who was like murdered or died in that like exact way that her
Murdered
son said.
or died?
I forget the exact story, but it was like one of those stories where you're like, wow, that's
Specific and horrible.
yeah, that's like fucking creepy as hell,
Uh-huh.
right? So what my thinking brain kicked in to at that
Is
point,
that the neighbor decided to fuck with the kid and make his parents think the house was haunted?
well, that's possible, right? That's one possibility. Like, who knows, right? But another possibility is that she's just making all this shit up.
Yeah, there's
Another possibility is, I don't know, maybe there is a dead ghost kid in the house. I have no way to know.
that's one of the possibilities. In fact, there's probably like 20 possibilities that
Right.
involve dead ghost kid and other details being slightly wrong.
And that's
But-
sort of my point. Like, whatever. Like, I still
But
got to go to work
considering-
and eat a sandwich.
Yeah.
Considering
Like-
people didn't understand what a hallucination was until recently,
Right.
and
That's a big point. Yeah.
and like people didn't understand how drugs worked, so people accidentally took drugs all the time.
Well,
in
people still
history.
don't understand that.
Right, but I mean, people at least know what they are.
Sure,
Like
yeah.
back, if you just ate some ergot poisoned grain or something, you start tripping out like the Salem witch trial people did.
Yeah, right.
And you start actually seeing shit, and they're like, well, it's got to be witchcraft. That bitch isn't lying. She's actually writhing on the floor right now. Yeah, she's tripping balls, and you're all yelling catechisms at her. Like, of course she's going to freak the fuck out.
And you're all drinking like 2% ale instead of water
day,
because
baby.
it's so dirty.
all day, baby, yeah.
Right.
And
You're also dying
I
of
forget what I was
cholera.
saying.
So
Yeah, I just started thinking about how horrible the
I know.
pilgrims
I
had
just
it.
started thinking
Forgot
about the
what we were
Oregon
talking
Trail.
well, so what
Oh, and the other thing is, there's phones everywhere now. If your eye is able to see a ghost,
why wouldn't your phone
My
see it?
camera.
Oh my God, Luke,
Yeah, my
do you see
phone
that?
camera is way better
Did you
than
see
my
that?
eye.
Oh, you missed
Oh
it.
my
It was in the
Oh.
graveyard.
Oh Jesus.
Oh.
By the way, guys,
I
I'm
saw
walking
him
to my
point,
car
guys.
later
That's how.
Yeah.
after this ghost episode, and as much as I don't believe in ghosts, I'll be honest, like a big part of my brain is not looking forward to it. Like, I'm gonna run to my car like Jerry Seinfeld running to his door when he's pretending there's a murderer,
Yeah.
Like-
Well, why wouldn't you? But isn't that healthy to do? Like on a practical level, to be like, yeah, let me not stay out in the dark, cold by myself longer
so
than
you could,
I have to.
you could
right?
come up with a Jordan Peterson-esque like mythology angle here, which is, why would humans invent ghost stories? Because ghosts almost always, when you're by the warm fireplace at home, surrounded by your family, you're not necessarily in that mode of, oh my God, ghosts. But when you're in the unknown, when you're in a dark graveyard, in the woods, in the basement, right? Basements are dark. Basements are like shadowy and you can't see and it's unknown. that's when the imagination of the mind, right? Because it's not like your eyes are data collecting devices that just purely record what the environment has and then make an image.
We'll talk about witness testimony the worst possible.
No. What your eyes do is they take in data and then help your brain build a model of what reality is. So they're just one of many sensory things that contribute to among the patterns that you've picked up on your whole life. That's why the classic, like, oh, it's a tree waving outside, but when you're a little kid, you hide under the covers because you could swear that something is scratching at your window with the shape of a ghost, and it looks like the ghost's arm, but it's just the branch rubbing up against the window.
We should really play the Leprechaun video. Oh no, we can't. You have to see it. We should link it in the description.
I don't know the Leprechaun video.
Do you?
Johnny,
you know the Leprechaun video, right? The Leprechaun.
Everyone see the Leprechaun.
He knows it.
That one.
Yeah.
Everyone see the Leprechaun. Say yeah.
But it's a perfect example of, like, somebody says one thing and everybody's like, yeah, of course there's a leprechaun in the tree. Let's go out and take pictures and party.
Yeah.
And like make a whole thing out of it.
So why is it that ghosts get such belief among all, like, you don't have the same problem with dragons, right? But we do with ghosts. Why is that?
Well, because we know dragons were real. There's fossils. Next question.
Well, because it's because memory, and you can hallucinate memories. So you're probably going to hallucinate. If you're going to hallucinate from something, it's probably going to be something you've seen before, right? Theoretically, or something.
And
yeah,
also,
that's a big part
brain.
of it. I think you'll hallucinate a person.
So you
figure.
hallucinate dead people or something. And in most of history, most of the people you knew were dead if you weren't, right?
Yeah, and,
like
and
ghosts
are
rough
also like
most of it.
making the dragon ghost differentiation. Like, ghosts are validation of like a spiritual realm, right? And it's like you don't need ghosts to be spiritual or to, believe in spirituality, but it certainly is one bridge to that, right?
So I that's kind of the angle I was trying to get at, which is that because it involves like life and death and that whole question, it's one of those classic skeptic rules, which is, and this is something I heard Penn and Teller, that magician duo. I forget which one is the quiet one that never speaks. But
the shorter guy.
The tall one is like a very outspoken atheist.
Yeah.
He's like
That's
a
Penn.
very outspoken skeptic.
Penn, yeah.
And
Penn Jillette.
Yeah, exactly. And so he said something today on that Big Think YouTube channel. They have these short little clips, and he was like, the more you want something to be true, the higher your level of skepticism should be. But
oftentimes the lower it is.
Well, of course. And that's why. It's like you have to make it higher just to compensate that bias. That, like, of course you want to believe that you're talking to your dead relative when you're at the seance, right?
Right.
But why then, if Arthur Conan Doyle's wife really was a medium, why was she making that shit up? Other examples that were really hilarious, Houdini's assistant went to undercover to some of these seances, and then they would have these fucking trumpets, right? So they turned the lights all the way down, and they would have these trumpets that they claimed were floating, but they were just these long trumpets on a stick, and it was actually the medium just yelling through them.
Long trumpets on a stick. That's an operation.
And so in the dark, she's saying, I'm getting contact. And Houdini's assistant was like, what is she wearing? Does she seem happy? And she's like, yes, like, does she want to say anything? And she was like, hello, it's me, I'm okay. Something.
Why does she become
like,
Kermit the Frog?
She makes like a weird
It's
voice.
Kermit.
But then she's
They
like,
ate my legs. Sorry.
you never get
go
hungry as a ghost.
My ghost legs will
haunt you on the
toilet.
But then she was like, is my dog Sparky there? And the medium did her best, God bless her, to go,
Yeah.
she never had a dog.
Yeah, but that doesn't.
She made the whole dog thing up, you know?
Just made Ricky. But that doesn't mean that every single one is
It doesn't.
phony.
It just means that some of them
ones Harry
have
Houdini
been
went
proven
to,
to be fake.
Agreed.
And for me, the safest assumption is that all the other, whether you're talking psychics, spiritual healers, any of that shit, I am open to the possibility that there's something legitimate going on there, but I am right now like this is the null hypothesis. I'm open to it, but right now I have to say I think it's bullshit.
So you think in the history of humanity that every single psychic medium has been absolutely full of bullshit, is what you're saying?
Well, when you say full of bullshit, you make it sound a little worse. There are examples where I think people are not deceiving on purpose other people, right? They believe
you
that
think
they have
they
something.
believe, yeah.
So what do you think of John Edwards? Did you ever watch him growing up?
I was never a fan of John Edwards, honestly.
Do you think he believes? Do you think he actually has, like, what about you, Johnny?
Oh, I have a crazy theory about these mediums.
I want to hear. I want to hear that.
I would love
yeah.
to hear that. That's exactly
I
what this
definitely
episode
wanna
calls
hear
for.
My theory
Yeah.
is, I think a lot of them genuinely believe it. So
I think at least a lot of them genuinely believe it, for sure.
So
not all of them.
How do I figure that out? Well, how do they all genuinely think this? It's like, well, maybe they are, or maybe they can. Like, maybe it's happening, but maybe they're wrong. So I'll shorten my whole crazy line of reasoning that brought me to this, but basically I think that they're like a router for aliens.
I was just going to say that.
To
Yeah.
fuck
shit.
with humans, and like they're like, let's see if we can use one human to like transmit, and like, you know what I mean, like trying to, like, it's like using one computer at the library to try to get on the internet kind of thing. Like they're trying to figure out humans, so they're like, well, we'll just fuck with this one, and so that you're kind of like a local router for them, and that's why you're picking up other people's memories and stuff. You may not be communicating with the actual dead person, but you might psychically somehow be picking up this person that lost someone is sitting there hoping that you can reach out to them for, like, they could pick up on those strong feelings, and also aliens. That's basically.
Well, I do know a psychic,
which I think is just as reasonable as ghosts.
Well, I do know a psychic medium, and I went to like a.
I was going to say, yeah, you guys have a little bit of a personal thing with that.
Well, I remember like talking to him once, and he channeled this. I think his name was Xenon, and I was
Xenon.
Yeah,
Dude,
I remember this
now
story.
that's a spirit name that I'd be a little bit intimidated by.
Well, here's the thing. Like, he started talking as Xenon, and then as he was talking, it was revealed that Xenon is not even a ghost or a spirit. Xenon isn't even dead. Xenon is just an alien from, like, somewhere else in the galaxy who's so advanced that he can tap into the same channel that the spirits can and be like, oh yeah, like, yeah, life is all over the place. Like, I'm Xenon.
You're making it sound like it's fucking the New York City apartment with like all those Wi-Fi fucking routers, and he just knows how to like
why not
hack into them or something.
Yeah, well, if you're an advanced enough alien species, like, sure, fuck
so
yeah.
Would you place that then? Okay,
To him, it's the same as going to the park and feeding ducks, right?
Yeah, Luke, if you think
let's
about
say
like
it's true.
human
Let's
progress,
say it's true. Would you say that's outside of any scientific theory we've come up with, and it's just something left to be discovered?
I think it's outside of
or are
the
these
theory
ghosts
that we have.
breaking the laws of physics?
No. I think it's outside of. It would be outside of like science as we understand it now. But when you think about scientific progress, even like you think about modern science goes back to like what Isaac Newton, basically like 400 fucking years ago, and it's like think about the exponential curve of scientific progress. And, you know, we've talked about this before, like approaching singularity and that sort of thing. All right, so project that 100 years in the future, 1,000 years, 10,000, 100,000, a million, a species that is 1 billion years ahead of us. What could you do?
I get it. Yeah, you're saying like, you know, their control over reality would be so.
It would seem ghostly
above what we
Just
can
look at the difference
imagine.
between
Right.
you and a chimp.
Yeah.
You know, like they lack basic things like object permanence and stuff like that.
Well, Neil
Yeah,
deGrasse
and you can
Tyson makes the
think
same
about their
argument with ants,
existence.
where he's like, an
Yeah.
ant wouldn't even, like, you walking past wouldn't even be able to verify you as another creature.
Right. He always uses that example with aliens that
Yeah.
take and he uses the chimpanzee example just to prove a point, which is, you know, we put on a pedestal like the chimpanzees that can learn sign language and do basic math equations and
Right.
logical things. We say, oh my God, look how smart they are, right?
Right.
Well, what if to this alien species, if you take that same example but make it now you're a really intelligent alien, right?
Mm-hmm.
And only as intelligent, like the increase of intelligence is only the same that we are above chimpanzees, let's say.
Yeah.
So you take that small little percentage increase of intelligence, which happens to be an important one, of course. It includes language and all that.
It's a game changer in terms of like society.
So that's one possibility, is that these increases in intelligence could have like critical points where you're just getting smarter and smarter. Then you hit a critical point where you interact with reality on a totally different way.
Right.
But anyways, he imagines like these aliens, like how would they even think they could talk to us, right? Because what are they going to say?
I can't talk to an ant. I can't even talk to a monkey.
I'll tell you what. Mars is actually filled with 12-foot Amazonian genius men with heads the size of couches, and they carved out Mars.
Are they
when
the
their
shape of
atmosphere
couches?
died.
How'd they carve Mars?
They're just roughly the size of couches. And they carved out the inside of Mars to hide while the atmosphere died, and that's what they made the moon out of. And they have a small base on the dark side where they communicate with the CIA, SAS, and I think Facebook. So
you ever
they
notice
won't tell you that, though.
Wait,
they always have
where does Total Recall
names.
work into this? Is Arnold Schwarzenegger
Arnold
involved?
Schwarzenegger is still up there gasping for breath as we speak, eyes bulging and shit. The motherfucker's stuck in a time loop.
I'd rather that, to be honest. I'd rather that than like
Than
any
just
of the
a
ghost
dead
stories
red
that
planet?
they bullshit here on Earth. You know.
Jesus H. Christ.
Now
Is that
here's
the
the
moon
complicated
is-
logical thing: is that you could both have all the fakery in the ghost world, and there could still be ghosts.
That's my only point, is because like I don't consider myself even like I certainly wouldn't say I'm religious, but like I'm spiritual in the sense that I'm very open to ideas, and even this idea that like I don't understand reality. Like I don't understand why even science works the way it does. I rely on it and I respect it, and I understand it more than any other
jerk
system.
off with it
all the time. But you know what I'm saying though, where it's like
no, but let me just make a distinction between the word
there's a lot I don't know.
and spiritualism. Like spiritualism is what gets smuggled into the ghost like world, where spirituality in general, it just comes from like spiritus, which means breath. And meditation.
Well, I think about it
the breath. So I think
I
there's
think
a more
about it,
secular way to see
I think about it more as
spirituality.
like energy, and like what that actually, like asking what that actually encompasses, and like I think
not necessarily like your spirit leaves you and now you float and party with the ghosts and visit humans. And...
Well, again, I think whatever that is like the traditional religious thing, and like I've heard people say this where it's like, oh yeah, like I'll die and go to heaven, and I'm like, what does that mean? Like you're making that so much more concrete than if that is what actually happens. Whatever that actually is definitely different. Like it's definitely totally like you can't
even if it's
fathom
anything
it.
like that, it would be like pretty different.
It would be totally, because why wouldn't it? It's like I've only ever been alive that I can remember.
Also, what if your head falls off when you die? Do you become a ghost with a head?
I saw a really weird video on that.
Everyone wearing all white. There's clouds fucking everywhere.
Wait, the clouds are banging?
There's clouds everywhere.
Nice.
And it's a giant table with everyone that you like that made the guest list, and you just eat pancakes with Jesus for all eternity. And it's one big pancake dinner that your hair is perfect and you don't need deodorant and you just hang out and it's a party that never ends.
So I saw really before we go
I'm down.
Before we go off the head thing
Right?
though, I saw a really interesting video about like French guillotines and and how this guy in like the 1800s or whatever did an experiment, and he told like this convict that I want to do an experiment, so I want you to blink if you can understand me after your head gets chopped off, basically. And the guy's head
blink for as long as you can.
Well, so the guy's like head got chopped off, and his head fell off or whatever, and he would just call out this guy's.
I love that part's just like his head fell off or whatever.
Yeah, whatever. It's rolling around for a while, but he asked him to like I think like if you understand me, blink or whatever. So he would just call out his name, and he called out the guy's name, and the way he described it was that like yes, his eyes looked at me with eyes of somebody who was alive, and he blinked. And then the second time, he said he waited like another 10 seconds, and he did it again, and the same thing happened. And he said by the third time, about 30 seconds in, they finally just like kind of glazed over, and he's like, I knew it was the look of a dead man. But he said up until 30 seconds, he's like, I could tell he could hear me, because that's what we sort of set up beforehand.
But is that sort of the old like you pull a fish out of the water and its nervous system is still firing, but it's not necessarily like.
Yeah, but he blinked on cue.
He blinked on cue. That's the point.
But I don't buy that because I've heard the guillotine stories where like within 2 seconds before the blood pools out of
I mean,
your
who
head,
knows? I don't know guillotine science for sure. Like,
It might depend on the person.
30
too,
seconds though, I don't know.
well, I mean, that was when he asked him at like he waited another 10 seconds. So it was like I think like the last time was like 20 seconds where like the guy was like, blinking.
What if his
still
head had
blinking.
landed in such a way that the blood didn't drain as
I mean, there's
quick?
probably
there
a lot
could
of
be
physical
things.
factors for sure.
It does bring up a cool thing about like.
But also, they didn't have. Sorry, Luke. Just one thing before I forget is they didn't have fucking germ theory until pretty recently. But they knew if you had a dead guy's head and you didn't throw it away and held on to it, you got sick and died. So you could easily blame that on ghosts and shit.
Well, isn't that what the
you could
Mongols
say,
did?
oh, his spirit came back and like whatever.
Yeah, it's really good to
Yeah.
have a healthy fear of a dead body because it really could kill you.
Right.
Even though
That's
it's
a
not
good point. Like,
physically animate.
It's so
Yeah.
it's so innate in us that like we fear like dead bodies, and I think that could just be an evolutionarily like advantageous thing because like you just said, Johnny, to stick around a dead body is to stick around decomposition
idea.
and rotting and bacteria.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
isn't that what the
And if they died of a disease, then you're even more likely to get that disease.
I think, Johnny, I remember you telling me that like the Mongols, I think, were the first ones who did germ warfare where they realized, oh yeah, just catapult like dead heads and bodies.
Did they
into-
even know that's what they were doing necessarily? But
Well,
I think
they know it worked,
I think they
maybe.
initially did it as like a terror aspect because that was their whole thing to like shock and awe.
but they might have
overwhelm.
also thought like, oh, look at the, whatever vibes are making people die of pestilence all of a
But
sudden.
no, they definitely did realize that it killed off, like it helped disease spread.
Sure,
they
yeah.
didn't know if it was. Who knows if they knew it was from the or thought it was from the panic it caused
Right.
or from the dead
Well,
bodies.
call it what
but-
you want if it works, right?
But yeah, they would launch corpses, especially of people that died of disease, prisoners, and because they had a lot of slaves. So if you died of a
Yeah.
disease, they would fling you into the next city.
Right.
But they were a special kind of brutal.
What, the Mongols?
Mhm.
It's so funny.
We should
People
do a
hear-
whole Mongol
Yeah,
episode.
people hear the Mongols and they're like, "Oh yeah, they like conquered Asia." It's like, no, they murdered everyone actually. Like they,
Yeah.
They caused a global cooling. Apparently, they killed so many people.
They were like
That-
they
that-
were like the Nazi party of whatever the
the
fuck.
1300s,
just
yeah, like-
imagine though being
The
a person
13th
back
century.
then and
12th century.
and just I was just imagining I was reading a little bit about this ghost shit
Where do you stand on ghosts, Luke?
last night and just kind of imagining life in
Hey
the-
Siri, tell me about ghost shit.
that's actually not far from where it started.
Yeah. Well, that's a good place. That's an honest place to start, right?
That's
fair.
perfect.
Yeah.
So
I'm down
like
with
I was
that.
just imagining like what would I think in the 18 whatever, right? Because in late 1800s like they had science of course, but it was nowhere near as robust as it is now.
Yeah, but also the over-the-counter medicine had fucking all sorts of shit in it, turpentine and opium. And
Right.
You were bound to see ghosts if you were taking
All
that
of it
shit.
was mostly arsenic. Yeah.
So the word ghost
Yeah,
exists, and
yeah.
then it's like, well, like
Mercury.
name
Yeah.
all of the bad things that could happen to you. We just have to call that a ghost, and then we're good to go. Ghost, right? Including hallucinations, including any kind of poisoning, right?
Yeah.
So,
I ain't afraid of no ghosts.
like, I think it was easier to believe in a ghost then, and a lot of people that were scientists genuinely thought that that is an area worth exploring.
Right.
But still, today, 1/3 of Americans believe in ghosts.
I don't have a problem with that though.
That's really high, I think.
No. Why?
No, that sounds about right.
You know what I was thinking as I was driving over here?
33%.
People
Yeah.
are plenty skeptical. If you're going to buy something on Amazon, you read the fucking reviews because you're skeptical of the claims made by the person selling
But-
it.
but again-
when somebody says, "Oh, like my house is haunted," they go, "Oh, that's so creepy," and they don't even like consider being skeptical about
No,
that.
I see what you're saying, but at the same time, I think also there is no one definition of ghosts. Still,
Yeah, you were talking about like
Ghosts.
spirits and even spirits of aliens or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I know there's a lot of definitions and to a
Well,
lot
that's
of
part of the
people,
problem
to a
because
lot
it
of
isn't
people,
scientific.
It's
Yeah.
religion in a way. It's
Yeah.
like a way to
or
say
it's part of it for sure.
it's
an
like
aspect.
when you die, it's not it.
Well, it's a validation of that, or confirmation, or whatever you want to call it, for sure.
For people though who think that like the spirit is eternal kind of vibe, my question to them is, aren't you more terrified of that, of being a confused spirit living through eternity, than just not
I would be
existing?
such a better person. I really would, though.
Yeah, but what makes you think
It's a
that
good
you're
argument
confused?
for it. Like,
Yeah.
Well, that's
I would try a lot harder. I would go and volunteer and do things like that.
no one
If
said
I was
God
like-
exists, Johnny.
See, I disagree. I disagree with that,
Just that
Johnny.
you'll be a
because
ghost.
I'm the other way because I don't know what happens. Like that's why I do shit where I'm like, yeah, I'll just spend like all week, going out and beach cleaning or whatever. Because
Nah, you do that because it benefits you. You don't.
I was
do
gonna
that to
say,
help
Joe.
others.
no, I do it because first of all, I have nothing better to do, and second of all, there's some sort of vibe that I've picked up on with myself where it's like I'll be sitting in my bed and I'll think to myself, yeah, I could watch this Netflix show, or I could just go do something that, even if it's a absolutely null, not really beneficial gain, it's still something. You're still trying something.
Well,
I'm not
I
trying to
agree.
score.
I
I'm not
agree.
trying. I'm not trying to score points with, and people. This is a thing. Like, people will say like, oh yeah, you're scoring points with the big man upstairs. I don't believe in that.
Well, I mean, even if you were doing it for that, fine. It's still better than, staying home and
But I'm
jerking
sa-
off to Netflix. What did you say you were doing otherwise?
Well, I'm saying I don't need that motivation to do it, because my thinking is that if I don't do it, nothing will get done. Like, I'm more worried about what's happening here than what's going to happen to me once I'm dead. Like,
Dare
don't-
I say
I don't
that
care what
maybe
happens to me
your
when I'm dead.
God is your own conscious? Wait, fuck.
Consciousness.
No, I meant like your
Conscious.
Yeah, it's-
Oh, my conscience.
conscience. Yeah, fuck. I couldn't figure
Have
out how
another
to say
beer.
that word.
Yes.
I'm gonna crack another beer and then I'll be able to say it.
You can also call it the Jiminy Cricket feeling. That's always fine. People know what that means.
I would say
You
that.
know what I mean? Like it's
No,
like
I would
your
s-
internal God that's like
Yeah.
that's pointing you towards quote unquote heaven instead of, because like I always use the example. I stole this from Jordan Peterson. Like it's something he says all the time, but
Yeah.
it's like, let's say you stand up out of bed and you're like, well, I could watch Netflix, or I could go do something good, right?
Yeah, right.
So why choose the something good, and what makes that good? It's like,
Yes, that's
well,
a great question. Yeah.
I don't know necessarily. It's hard to answer the question, what makes something good? But what we do know is that you could choose to do the worst possible thing,
Yeah.
and that would be bad.
Yeah, it's like go bang turtles on
And
the
like
beach
fair enough, in
instead.
terms of morality, you need some kind of axiom of good bad to get you off the ground.
No,
you know?
I
But
think
I could
think
just get
I
enough
think-
donuts that I could just jerk off all day, and I don't need to leave to get more.
you could
donuts.
even use
Like,
one of the
you could do
donuts as
that.
like
Oh, you could use a ring of
jerk
donuts,
off,
yeah.
like
Just-
tool.
I could do it at a bus stop that I know
Yeah.
no one will stop me at. You
No,
know?
I would.
There's a lot of things you can do.
No, I would
What
say
are we
that
talking about?
that even me being like, well, I don't want to be a piece of shit and lay in bed and just watch Netflix all day. So
right.
I'll go out and
Now, do you think
clean
it's
the beach
more
or whatever.
moral to do that in your situation, or if you think you're pleasing the guy upstairs?
Well, here's the thing is that
Which is more moral?
well, that's a tough question, because I think at the end of the day it's still selfish. Like, I'm still doing it because it makes me feel good, right? Like, I'm not doing it out of this selfless act of like, well, the world's a totally better place now. Like, that may be true if it does help the world, but that makes me feel good because I'm thinking to myself, well, what did I really gain from just staying in bed watching Netflix? And what's interesting is that it's
A bunch of cum-filled napkins.
why this is like the seventh
I
time
know.
you come back to just like, oh yeah, you either jerk off or you go do good things in life.
I put that on you. You said Netflix. I added the jerk off part for you.
But you see what I'm saying? Where
Was
like there's
implied.
two different ways to justify that. Where
Netflix
you're either
and cry
doing it,
alone, yeah.
you can do it either because you're a religious person and you're like, oh yeah, this is what God wants, and God gave us all this and we have to protect it. Or like me, where I'm like, I don't know, I don't care. I just know that this does help. So why
And
wouldn't
it
I
makes
do
you,
it?
and it makes you feel good. Even
Well, either way, it makes
there's
you
no
feel
such
good.
thing as a selfless act.
Oh,
That's
I
what you're-
totally agree
yeah.
with that. But I think admitting that there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I don't think
No.
that's a bad thing.
Well, so
Like,
I
even
would
Batman,
say
he
it's
does it
more
'cause he
moral.
wants to.
I would say it's of a higher order of morality.
Well, I think it's more like I've self-assessed, like, at least,
It's
right?
it's you've scratched away to a deeper layer of why is it good to do good?
Yes,
like that's a valid
that's a great
question to
question,
ask.
yeah, right.
Why should I wake up in the morning and do anything good? Are
you don't have
scared?
to, and you not doing anything good isn't going to change anything. Or you doing just like
And that's
giving
what
everything.
That's what makes this period of time, of just like globalism, of being aware of how big the Earth is and how many people there are,
yeah.
and the very, very, very little money I have, I could donate tomorrow and live under a bridge, right?
Right.
But it's not practical because even if I donated tomorrow $100,000 to any of the best charities ever,
All those
it's going to make
$100,000 you don't have, yeah.
the smallest dent. No, I'm saying
Yeah.
even if I had $100,000 to donate.
But here's the thing. I see what you're saying too, and this is kind of getting off the topic and rails a little bit. But I think it's really important. And we should probably do an episode on this in general. I think because I think it's a really worthwhile episode because there was never a book written on like, and when I say book, I mean proverbially, but like on how to do like social media, and we've talked about this before, like activism and stuff, and I've been trying to do that with my own stuff where I started, I mean, it's only recently, but all my like beach cleaning shit, I just hashtag it all Earth Day. And I just plan on doing that all year because fuck you, every day is Earth Day.
Sure.
Like it can't just be one day of the year. That's just bullshit. That's not going to get anything done.
It's one of those, it makes people feel good, but
the problem is
Yeah.
that you go on social media and like I'll post something and it will get like 20 likes. And then there's just pictures of useless shit that get hundreds and thousands of likes, and it's like, well, what are you really using this for? So I think there's something there that like really needs to be tapped into, like this like we were talking about globalism, and especially in terms of communication, global communication and networking, that we need to be more active with that.
there's also the angle
We need to
of
figure
like,
it out.
You know, it can be used to show, instead of checking in on the various social media outlets, instead of checking in like all the bullshit you do all day,
Right.
what if you checked in, and it feels weird to do it, but checked in all the little good things you do each day?
Right.
Oh, I pulled
Yeah,
over on the side of
absolutely,
the
yeah.
road to see if that guy whose car broke down, like if I could help in any way, right?
But not to just make yourself, well, again, we talked about this, like it is selfish in that sense, but also fucking be a better person. Like,
So it's always selfish, right?
sure,
Fair.
but whatever.
Fine
Yeah.
to admit. Let's even say that it's even more selfish than just you feeling good, right?
Yeah.
Like, because you could say it's more selfish if you're thinking that there's a guy in the sky watching you, right?
Right.
But there is a guy in the sky watching you. It's in your own mind.
Right.
They
yeah.
call it the Watcher in certain
Yeah.
religious traditions, the Atman or whatever. And so
It's pronounced Ottoman, but go on.
I forget if I said this ever, because like Jordan Peterson always gets like thrusted up as like the religious one versus Sam Harris, the atheist one.
That's interesting.
And
yeah.
they're about to have a few live debates, I think, coming up. But
Oh, that's cool.
when he always
Cool.
gets asked, like, do you believe in God? He says, like, after a bunch of conversations, he always says, like, look, I behave in a way as if God exists. And that's a way to say I behave in a way that I place an ideal good as something to chase after.
Okay, that's fair.
You know?
Yeah.
And it
I dig
doesn't
that, yeah.
it doesn't involve any magic or ghosts or,
I'm
spirits
or I'm going to
dead
hell
or
or I'm
heaven.
going to hell if I don't, right?
No,
Yeah.
it just means that
Right.
that, and this is, I mean, of course, in philosophy, this will get to the deep questions of what makes good or bad, right?
Yeah.
Like they say with physics, even, right? With science itself, you have to have some kind of axiom to get science off the ground. In other words, you have
Yeah.
to say, I think the universe makes sense, and I'm going to make patterns out of the universe.
Right.
With morality, depending on who you ask, they say, well, you need an axiom, a truth claim to get morality off the ground. And that is, it is good to be good, right?
Well, that's a good question too, because then you can ask, like, well, what is God? Is God, if God is just whatever you define as goodness, like, is that enough? And it's like, okay, fair enough.
I think
right?
so. I mean, I
Yeah.
think the funny thing is that's such a simple God, but the complex
who
God that
cares,
you
right?
read about through the stories, I
Yeah.
think if you get deep enough in it and get deep enough into like the personal reflecting on those stories or whatever the fuck stories, like you can read fucking Tolstoy if you want, you know, like it doesn't matter. It
You
doesn't
can
have
read you can read the Silmarillion if you
just
want.
read
Yeah.
deep shit and,
Sure.
and introspect, and you'll find plenty of evidence for quote unquote God. So like I think the word God should be reclaimed. I think the word spirituality
Yeah.
and like all that shit should be reclaimed
well, I think
from
it-
this
it-
hokey spirit, ghosty,
Yeah.
religion-y world to like, no, you can be smart and have a spiritual life. You can be
Yeah.
smart and have a sense of a quote unquote God while still being materialistic and scientifically literate.
And I think that's much more important too, because that brings you back to like, you can't just rely on this idea of like, oh, God will take care of things, or like, yeah, God made the earth, of course,
Right.
like we can't change it or pollute it too much to the point where it gets fucked up.
If
It's
you
like,
make God too
no.
strong, then
Right.
you use him for bad.
Well, you use him as like a
To be
crutch.
lazy.
Yeah, totally.
That's why I like the Greek gods or the Norse gods, because they're more, rather than these all-powerful beings, they might be compared to us, but they, they're still slaves to their own nature. That's why there's like a god of war. It's not so much that
Yeah.
there's an actual angry red man on a mountaintop being like, go fight each other. It's that war is something that no matter like how many generations go by, it's something you can't get rid of. It's this like natural force.
Oh, okay.
Like love or wrath or like that was the whole
Right, yeah.
the whole thing with him is like these were the gods and they would just whoever they touched upon, that was it. It's like, yeah, came from a good family,
Yeah.
He had 4 other sons that were great. That one just had crazy rage issues and ended up dead in a bar somewhere. It's like, yeah, the god of
The gods were
or the
like
imp-
archetypes in that sense,
or,
right?
yeah,
Totally,
the,
yeah.
The imp of the perverse was on this guy's shoulders that had bad impulse control or whatever.
Oh,
Like,
I love the
it-
imp of the perverse. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good one.
Yeah.
But there's
the funnest.
yeah, we're familiar. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just like that idea of gods, lower G, as these like forces that we're kind of slaves to, but they kind of are also, rather than that.
Well, it becomes symbiotic in that sense, right? Like you can't have one without the other. Or what do you have?
Yeah.
Well, so like God, then Johnny might be the aggregate of all of those sub personalities.
You just like saying aggregate.
Oh, it's a great word.
It's an underused word too.
That's actually like the other angle that the collision you have on this topic of ghosts, it is sort of like the mind body problem, right? The brain mind problem. What it's called dualism in philosophy, right? So like you have like Plato, who thought that we have a soul that's eternal, right? I think he gave the soul 3 parts or something, and one of them is eternal, the logos, right? But anyways, fast forward through different philosophers, and I think Aristotle kind of didn't really agree with that, and then you had like people saying, no, there's no ghost in the machine, As science got more and more robust, materialism, physicalism, right? The idea that you can explain things through naturalism, right? Natural phenomena.
Right.
It's like, well, there is the hard problem of
And
consciousness, but
And now we're dealing with the new problem is what if we make artificial consciousness that's
right.
as or more advanced
Right.
than us? Does that have a soul?
And how do we know? How do we even know if it's conscious? Right? It could be a philosophical zombie, meaning it exhibits every sense of having experience, but maybe it's not actually. Maybe there is
Well,
nothing that it
I
is
was
like to
gonna-
be it.
But that's what I mean. Like, what is actual? How do you define actual?
So, like,
what is your metric?
That's
right?
like a Thomas Nagel. He's I love reading Nagel, by the way. Like,
Yeah.
of like philosophy can annoy me sometimes, but like the way Nagel writes is really, it's just it lights my brain up in the right way. He has an essay called "On Being a Bat," and it's just about consciousness and like, it's like, what is a bat's consciousness, or like, is a bat right? These questions of like, is an ant conscious? Like, are we?
Yeah.
It's like if there is anything that it is like to be that thing,
Yeah.
then that is conscious, right? Like,
Yeah.
of course, the bat's consciousness is probably not as complex
Yeah.
and all the things human we have, but there is something. I would bet there is something that it is like to be a bat, right?
I'll take your word for it.
So my question to you, Johnny, is: are there bat ghosts,
Or even better question: are there ant ghosts,
or
worm ghosts?
Or
Well, this
bacteria
goes back
ghosts?
to when we were talking about
where do you draw the
reincarnation.
line? Draw the line.
yeah,
Well,
no,
we're
that's a
talking
good
about
question. Yeah,
We were talking about reincarnation, where is it like, are you a wolf every time? If a wolf dies, he always comes back as a wolf, or like,
Exactly.
what happens in 10,000 years when a wolf is a dog now? Like, are chihuahuas the souls of used to be wolves, and now they're just stuck being chihuahuas, or are they have to wait for more wolves? Or like an animal dies out, do they like so that same kind of
well,
thing
that's one of the
with ghosts? Like, do they like what's the threshold? We humans arrogantly like to think we're the only thing on Earth that would have a ghost because we're the only ones that are conscious, but.
Well,
Right, and that's
one
why
of, that's
people-
one of the Sasquatch theories is that they're actually Neanderthal ghosts, and that's why you don't ever find Sasquatch poop.
because they're just ghosts.
They're
All right, so
Neanderthal
I have a few rapid fire ghost questions for you, Joe.
Please.
Because you always hear about all the ways they fuck with people. They knock over books. They knock over chairs. They turn on TVs.
You have to actually do it rapid fire, Luke.
Okay.
I want
Do
Joe
ghosts
off guard.
ever
Ready,
get
set,
horny?
go.
Do ghosts ever get horny?
All the time.
How come you never hear people waking up in the middle of the night with a ghost like riding on their cock?
Who says I haven't heard that?
I haven't.
Who says that hasn't happened to me?
I've had that happen.
Yeah, I was going to
guess
say,
Alright.
yeah, you're on number 2 to 1 here,
All
bud.
right. Do ghosts have to poop or pee?
Only ghosts poop and pee, yes.
Yeah.
What? Do they sleep?
They don't have to unless they don't want to.
Are they in a different dimension?
They're in all the dimensions simultaneously.
See, this is what the trouble is. Like I'm
yeah,
asking.
Yeah, you don't understand because you're not a fucking ghost. Next question. Are you done? Do you admit defeat? Because I'm
Do you want to
satisfied.
ask me some questions?
No, I'm bad at this apparently.
I have all the same answers. Okay.
Johnny might be our rapid fire champ here.
The thing about these kinds of
All right, rapid fire question.
See?
Ready, set, Luke. Hitler's ghost. Would you fuck him? Go.
no,
All right.
That one's easy.
Joe, Joseph Stalin's going to shoot your dog, but he'll come back as a ghost. Do you let him shoot him, or do you try to take the gun from him? Go.
What?
that's a confusing one.
All right. Bad answer.
That's just linguistically
Fair
confusing.
enough. Yeah. Am I shooting the dog?
Yeah. Because
I
otherwise,
might
it
not be
seems like
ready.
an easy decision. Just try and shoot Stalin.
Yeah, whatever I have to do to kill Stalin's ghost, I'll choose that one. Yeah.
All right, Luke. Girl offers to give you a blowjob. She dies. Her ghost come back, says she has to give you the blowjob to pass on. Do you take the ghost blow or no? Go.
Yes.
Luke, the look
All right.
on Luke's face was so traumatized.
Wait, but I love
Joe.
this idea where I just encounter a girl who says, "I'll give you a blowjob," and then she
Joe,
dies. And then
'cause
for
you're a
some
psycho.
reason, the laws of the magical, godly spirit land say you have to complete
ruining
this
my rapid
transaction.
fire.
Wait, yeah.
I got more
All
questions.
right, go ahead.
Joe, same deal, but when the ghost shows up, she's huge now. She's really fat. You let her blow you. Go.
Yeah, I'm not going to turn down a ghost blowjob just for the experience. If it's
All
the
right,
first
Luke.
time, yeah.
I'll film it.
Luke, same,
It's a Thunk Tank Extra.
I'm putting that right on
Patreon
YouTube.
subscribers only. Like, share, and subscribe.
if you guys are wondering what's behind that Patreon paywall, it's
Yeah, if you donate
Some
on Patreon,
hardcore-
you will see
got
a
hard-
ghost blowjob performed on Joe. Filmed by me.
It's hot and heavy.
Wait, we
The
could
har-
actually
the
do that
hardcore
with our
ghost
ghost
hunters.
masks.
yeah.
Luke, what you just suggested is just pornography at this point,
That's
by the
just-
way. Because they don't
that's
even
just
know what
the
you mean
fetish
by
porn now.
our ghost masks.
Also, if I did that,
what
then it's
ghost
just
mask?
porn.
That's what I just said.
It's not even ghost porn.
No, it's
just
porn and
regular
masks.
porn.
Fetish porn though, because you're dressing up, so it's in a specific
I
thing.
could
So.
I could dress up
Jesus
like a girl
Christ.
ghost.
Luke, same question. Luke, same question. Offered a blowjob,
God.
they die, then they come back as a ghost and have to perform the blowjob to pass on, but it's a guy. Do you let him do it, or do you make him float around in the netherworld for all eternity? Go.
Oh,
And,
so you're
and
doing
how
the
do I
ghost
verify
approval.
that
Okay.
information?
It's a fucking ghost, and it's in front of you.
Um,
Do you need more than that?
How do I know this is not a trick though? That I'm just gonna have some ghost curse,
Like, whenever you go to pee, there's just a ghost.
or every time I fall asleep, he's like, "I'm back," and I can't fall asleep until I let him blow me.
to ghost
I mean,
completion.
And the key
That
is
sounds-
they
that
need
sounds more like
if you reject them on the first night,
Can we-
then they move on to
can,
another
can
person.
we play the South Park clip where he gets so
Luke.
ghosted?
Hold on, wait. We can't move on yet
Okay,
because
go ahead.
I just want to. Luke, is
Johnny
scared of
realized he
this.
cornered me. and
Yeah,
Luke is scared
you
of
might
this
be
for
done
No,
here.
you're scared of this for the same reason. The one of the worst reasons most guys that might want to look into it are say that they wouldn't do any gay shit is because they're scared they would like it. That's what you're saying.
I would take a ghost blow. I don't care what.
Like, what if I have
species
to
it
let him
is.
blow me before I can fall asleep? Like, you're not going to be able to sleep after getting a ghost to blow
But
you?
that wasn't part
I
of
would get over it. I would.
But
get
that
over
wasn't
it.
part
in
of the
there.
deal that you would get genied with it. Like if a
Yeah.
ghost is gonna blowjob genie you, you're screwed anyways. So I don't think that's really the problem or the factor. It's like I would take a ghost blowjob just because
I would say okay.
yeah.
Honestly, I would just assume
Yeah, whatever.
I got a little too fucked up and I would just
Man,
close my eyes and
I really shouldn't have done that
So,
second
all your
pint of
other gay
ayahuasca.
experiences.
I would just be like, hey, can I pull out my iPad and
Watch regular porn?
Yeah, watch regular porn while you do the ghost blowjob on me.
No, and he goes, no, you have to be present.
Oh, you didn't tell me it talks like fucking Ghost of Christmas Past.
No, that's me. I'm in the corner with the camera. We got to get this for the Patreon.
Patreon. Yeah, he's got to
Johnny's in the corner like, come on, Luke, come for Patreon.
Do it for our subscribers.
Luke, he just took it to the next level. Now I'm giving notes.
Yeah, I took it to the next level.
What if
Totally.
like next week we just check and we have
Luke,
20 more Patreon subscribers?
Dude, yeah, I bet.
And then they get outraged at the lack of ghost porn.
Wait, but
we got to rush and put a ghost video together. That's a movie right there. That's
a documentary, dude.
Wait, that would also say something about our small audience that we've managed to make up here. That like
we do have an international
at least half
audience.
Of them
we
are
should make this
convinced
movie
by ghost
guys,
porn.
We should write this movie, but we should cast Luke. We'll have as Ricky Gervais as Luke.
God damn it.
We'll get the guy from Sam Rockwell as Joe. And then, I don't know, pick, and I'll be Seth Rogen. There you go.
I have a toy robot in the corner with a king's crown on him. He can be a guest.
He'll be a guest.
Yeah. We got some characters here.
We can do this.
We can make this happen.
I'd take the blowjob.
I would always take the blowjob.
I'm out of rapid fire questions.
That's probably for the best.
So, Joe, how would you say the
belief?
Like, because, look, I meet a lot of people of different levels of intelligence, and
that's not a pretentious way to start a sentence at all.
Arrogant.
Yeah.
What I mean is, I
You're fine.
am okay.
No, I understand.
Let me rewind.
I understand. You're better than most people. I get it.
Yeah, no.
Let me rewind.
Yeah,
a week ago, we were going to record this episode on ghosts, and then we all got busy, so we put it off to this week. No, honestly, like I was so happy you canceled. I was like in the middle of cooking.
Oh
paella.
yeah, we were pretty rushed.
I had just put like the onions on the cast iron when you were like, maybe we should cancel. I was like, yeah, like I'm just starting to cook a paella. Like I probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna make it to Joe's. Yeah.
So I had a week before today, and one of the things I was doing is everybody I saw, I was just like, hey, side note, do you believe in ghosts?
Yeah.
And almost everybody I knew was like, ha, yeah, not really.
Yeah.
But a third of Americans believe in ghosts, so it's like I know a few that definitely do, right?
Yeah,
but
sure.
like nobody that I asked this week. And so I was thinking to myself, well, one, I'm lucky to have like very smart skeptical friends, because like none of them, like if you actually ask them, believe in ghosts, right? But there are shallow reasons to not believe in ghosts, and like
well, there's shallow reasons to believe and not believe in ghosts.
There are shallow reasons to believe in ghosts,
yeah,
and there are deeper reasons to believe in ghosts, right?
Sure.
So of the shallow reasons, like how is you don't see adults believing in Santa or the Tooth Fairy, right?
Right.
They admit that's silly. How are ghosts any different than that? And I mean that because I know a lot of intelligent adults who I know who would also, in the same breath that they would say something really smart, also say like, I think I saw a ghost. Like I know somebody who claims they see dead bodies occasionally.
So what's wrong with that?
Well, I'm asking you, like, is that different than believing in Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy or anything like that?
Right, because ghosts.
What's
bring
really
me
weird
presents
is they
and Santa
work
doesn't.
at the Chinese. They work at the Chinese food restaurant, and they only ever see them in the fridge. So
not
really
that,
odd.
that
Wow,
not
that's specific. Yeah.
Not that one should ridicule people in general, but like, is it as able to be ridiculed as saying as a 40-year-old adult, like, I believe in ghosts?
Well, let me ask you this: like, what's the problem? Like, if somebody's smart and intelligent, and they say from time to time that they, not even that they see ghosts, but that they believe in ghosts. I mean, is a good moral person who believes that they see ghosts. I don't have a problem or even a concern with that. Like, if you really believe that, then if that doesn't muddy your other quality thinking, I don't care.
Okay.
It's all about how they put it into practice. Like, if
Yeah,
you're like,
sure.
yeah, I'm open to the idea of ghosts, and like I had a thing when I was a kid, so sure. But that's different than saying, I got ghosts in my blood and I need cocaine to drive them out.
No,
That's
Johnny,
different.
you're absolutely.
No, that's fair.
I think
That's a big
I
difference.
think that's a really important differentiation, and that gets back to what we talked about like being a moral person, whether or not you believe in God or a higher spiritual being or whatever. It's like those. They don't necessarily have to be independent of each other, but you should be able to reach those points regardless. I think that's we've talked about this before too. How like a lot of times I have friends who are very religious people. Like they go to church, they pray, they believe in God in whatever context that they do, and even just talking to them, like I realize I have way more in common with them in terms of identifying with just like trying to be a good productive person, and it's not always easy and you don't always do a good job at it, but being able to recognize that and self-assess that's huge. And I realize that we have much more in common than a lot of times
people that are not that. But
well, not that, or people at either extremes where it's like
people that on paper would seem more similar to you on
Yes.
that one dimension,
Right, exactly.
of religion and spirituality, whatever.
Right. And that's why like when I say I don't have a problem with that, it's like great, because when you ask like, well, what is the other quality thinking going on, as long as it's in line with what I look at as being virtuous isn't the word I want to use necessarily, but you get what I'm saying in terms of what we've talked about earlier about just being not a piece of shit, basically. That's really what concerns me more.
Here's a good way to see how much you actually believe that.
Yeah.
Would you date / not date, because whatever, would you marry somebody? Would you be in a long-term relationship with somebody who like believed in ghosts? Would that be a deal breaker for you?
No, that would be one metric.
I don't mean like,
Would you be-
I mean
Joe,
like actively like did weird shit all the time. Like
Well, yeah.
every time you move into a new apartment, they walk through with like burning this to like ward off the spirits.
No, as long as it smells
they got,
nice.
like,
Yeah, I don't give a fuck.
oh, sandalwood.
No, if you want to bring it, hey, if you want to bring in good spiritual vibes, go for it.
She
Go
goes,
to
I'll
town.
get married to you, but every time that we have sex, I have to do this 10-minute anti, bad spirit chanting. Is that a deal breaker?
What?
I'm just trying to see where you draw your line, Joe.
There's definitely a line, and
Listen,
and that's probably it.
It's this weird.
If that's
thing
what you're
I
Hey,
have to
asking.
listen,
do.
every time
Eight
gotta
minutes
say-
would
I
be
gotta-
fine, but 10 is too much. Double-digit
I gotta
minutes
say
is
a
too much.
charm when I walk in a room. I gotta do a thing with my hand when I turn on lights. My eyes roll back.
Yeah,
and
see.
flames come out of my head when I give you a blowjob. Just little things like
Wait,
that.
like literally or figuratively?
I was gonna go with that one next. Be like, oh, and every time we have sex, like a ghost is gonna come. It's just a friend of theirs, like in a ghost costume.
Yeah, but that's actually that's a really yeah, who just videoed it with the
Yeah,
camcorder.
It's just a camcorder ghost.
But that's a really good question, because what you're asking is like, how do you weigh and value these different metrics? And again, like somebody who says like, I believe in ghosts or whatever about ghosts, like if they're a genuinely good person and a lot of other beliefs and values line up, I'm much more attractive to that person than somebody who's a piece of shit who's like, yeah, world's fucked. I don't,
Right.
like
Which plenty of skeptics are not necessarily good people, right? Skepticism doesn't get you.
no, you have good and bad people in
Yeah.
any spectrum.
Although
for sure, yeah.
I heard a good distinction. This guy, and I'll put some of these guys that you can look up if you're interested in
yeah.
getting into the skeptic angle of this shit.
We're gonna have a lot of links for this episode.
A lot of links.
Yeah, definitely.
So this
Like,
guy
share, and
name this
subscribe.
guy's name is Joe Nichols, and he made a point to make a distinction between skepticism and cynicism.
That's actually really interesting. I
To
like
be
that,
cynical,
yeah. Right.
I mean, how would you draw that distinction? Like I only wrote that down in my little note thing for this episode, like skepticism versus cynicism, but
Well, I think that's what I am.
how would you make the difference there?
Well, I think of myself as a skeptic, not in terms of even ghosts, in terms of everything in life, right?
Yeah,
and I think
including
that's
Amazon reviews.
mostly Amazon.
Mostly
reviews,
Amazon
yeah.
reviews.
But I feel like that's healthy, right? And cynicism is kind of taking a specific angle, not as objectively, right? Where you're kind of going into whatever you're looking at and saying, well, fuck it because of these reasons. And that's kind of my problem with nihilism in
You're
general.
going into to for the ghost example,
Right.
You would not be. as a ghost hunter, you're trying to debunk ghosts rather than to find out if ghosts exist.
If I were a ghost hunter?
No, I'm saying like the cynical angle is saying that you're a debunker, whereas the skeptical angle is like maybe it does exist, but I'm going to need good evidence.
Well, I'm going to need a lot of evidence for sure.
Skeptics are open to it, like open to the validity of something in general, but questioning it, whereas cynics are more, I think, like questioning it as much as a skeptic, but also like, why are you even bothering to do that?
Well, again,
like it might, you know,
yeah,
you might be right or wrong. Like you might be right, you might be wrong, but I don't even think you should be bothering to do that.
Well,
in the first
a cynic
place.
has a very specific angle, much like somebody who's going in saying, "Oh, ghosts are absolutely real." If you go in saying ghosts are absolutely fake, well, you're already trying to prove a point without getting the evidence first, which is fine if that's your hypothesis, but I think you got to be very careful with that. And ghosts are kind of a weird example, but you can take it to any other. That was really distracting.
His stomach, Johnny's rubbing his belly in front of the camera, and it's as white as a ghost.
My white beer belly ghost. Guys, I went to the bathroom. I'm talking on my phone. What are you talking about?
Is this our first on-air ghost experience?
No, I think this is the beginning of the ghost porno.
Yeah, can we save this video for the beginning? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It starts with some light belly play. Yeah.
Well, it always starts with some light belly play, ladies and gentlemen, here at Thunk Tank Podcast.
Some light belly and digit play.
Yeah. Fair enough. But
digit. And then we get to the. Oh, never mind.
Yeah. Well, I think the moral of the story is we know that ghosts are real because Luke explained it, and
because Luke saw one.
Well,
Luke, you've definitely seen a ghost.
All right, so Johnny, I'm going to tell the Johnny Luke ghost story.
You should probably do that.
Tell the whole story though, including the ending.
I'm going to tell it. I'm just going to tell it
Start
straight
with
up. I'm going to tell it how it happened, even though I would like to pretend this is not how it went down. I'm going to just.
Was there a video camera involved? Was there a camcorder?
No, I pushed that memory deep down. I think Luke did too.
Okay.
Johnny, if I remember, none of us
time.
had like smartphones at the time, right? We just had the shitty flip phones.
No, this was like Bush era, right?
This was the Nextel walkie-talkie phone, so you didn't use your minutes. You remember those?
Oh, yeah.
Those
wow,
days.
that's old school.
I'm pretty sure this was probably circa 2010.
The fact he had to say circa, ladies and gentlemen.
No, he said.
No, it was
he
before
said
then.
Circa.
I said circa.
He said circa because he went like super, I don't know, Latino person. Circa 1927.
Luke's trying to get us some more Latin American listeners.
Well, that kind of fits in with the ghost story, actually.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, no, you're right. It doesn't. It could, though.
Oh, God. Yeah, just add the Latina vibe to it.
So, Johnny, I'm going to try and trigger your memory of the details because I've told this story enough times that I have like.
You have your version of it, yeah.
Well, yeah, of course. Every time you tell a story, like you change it a little bit. But so.
Oh, for sure.
Me and Johnny were at some party, and we had biked there. Oh no.
Wait, it was a dark and stormy night.
Johnny biked there.
It was not.
I had gotten a ride there, but we were about a 30-minute walk from where I used to live. So we had, let's say...
all the beer?
Gosh, at that time, like, you could crush 7 beers at, like, a 2-hour party, you know?
Yeah, hardcore.
And so we were feeling pretty good, and Johnny was like, look, it's midnight. Let's go to the beach. I have my bike. We're close to your house. We'll walk to your house. Then we'll get your bike, and then we'll both bike to the beach. So we were finishing the rest of this 12 case of beer that we brought from this party, and we got to my house. We got the bike. I think, Johnny, if I remember correctly, we put the rest of the beer in one of our backpacks, and then we went to the gas station at the end of my road and got some snacks. Do you remember what those snacks were?
I remember specifically getting the barbecue Frito twist.
Oh, I'm so
things.
glad you said that. That's
So
exactly.
ghosts are real.
Those Frito
That's
twists.
exactly right.
I remember that.
And do you remember the best
forget
part
what else.
of getting that snack?
We forgot about
Yes,
it until we
I
were
do.
really hungry.
This
at
is
the
making me
beach.
so happy that you remember this.
I remember
accurately.
that part of it. Yeah,
We were like, this was after the ghosts when we were like a little bit, I don't know, just post ghost, like
Post ghost chill.
Post ghost
Post
chilling.
ghost.
Yeah,
And, like,
PGC, post ghost.
I remember
chilling.
yelling-
We put a lot of work. It took us like hours from the decision to actually get to the beach. So like we were doing it,
Yeah.
you know. So once we got there, we're like, well, we can't just leave. We have to hang out and enjoy this. Damn it!
And then we forgot we had these chips, and I was like, "Oh my god, Johnny, the chips!" But
Yeah,
before
I
that,
was so hungry.
before that,
Oh God.
oh wait, it's gonna take me forever. I was gonna play the ghost sound on my phone again.
He's so not
Can't
had
do
it
it.
ready. I saw you like, oh, this is a good idea.
Well, I'll just say, ghosts.
But no, we made it down. We were riding on the way to the beach.
Jesus Christ. Go back
And
to
then
the
Luke
other
got a
one.
call.
But
And then
before
Luke got a
that,
call.
Before that, go on, Johnny.
so we're Johnny, go for it.
That was so not worth it.
It's like,
not
hey,
worth the
Luke, why
effort
don't you
at
take
all.
the entire flow out of the story and play an acoustic guitar followed by a sci-fi sound?
But yeah, one of two ringtones everyone's heard.
Both of them.
I'm just trying to
Already.
justify the fact that I can hook my phone up to the mixer. That's
It's
all.
pretty great.
Ideally,
Totally
dude.
worth it.
Yeah.
Totally worth it. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, so we go around the corner and we're on our bikes. We're like really close to the beach.
No
and
cell
there's a
service,
row
keep in
of-
mind.
No cell service at this area. Still isn't, even years later
Yeah.
with fancy smartphones.
Crazy.
It's one of those spots.
Yeah.
And as we're going around the turn, these fucking bitches,
No, Johnny, just rewind like 7 seconds.
Yeah, you were doing so well.
Yeah.
these two people jumped out of the bushes.
Three
And,
people.
like, was it three?
God.
Three people.
I think it was
remember
three.
Two people jumped out of the bushes and waved their arm. Might have been three. Waved their arms around and like stopped us and blocked our path. So I was like, "What the fuck?" And
It was like one of
And it
those
was-
either we run into them on our bikes or we stop for a second. But also it wasn't like they were scary looking. They weren't dressed as like scary
Ghosts.
skeleton or ghosts or anything. They look like
I mean, they were people.
they were people, and they looked maybe a year older than us tops, but
They seemed to have what appeared to be skin,
Wow.
with clothes on top. Officer.
So the detail I remember that was unique about it, Johnny, is that we ended up standing in the road. I mean, we moved over to the side of the road, but we ended up standing there talking to these girls for like well over an hour.
About ghost stories?
I have no idea. But here's
Oh, I
the weird
remember.
part, Joe. We talked to them for about an hour.
Yeah.
Turns out they were from Chicago.
Yeah.
They were visiting a family friend at the house
oh yeah.
2 houses down from where. So they were just like
Really?
it was late at night, and they were just out in the woods, and then they happened to see us, and they were drinking too or something, right? That's what we thought, because
Yeah.
like we were drunk, and
Sure.
the first thing we thought was like, "Hey, humans, let's talk to you." Like
Humans.
whatever. We talked to them for a while. They say, "Yeah, we're staying here for the weekend." This was a Friday night, going back to Chicago like at the end of the weekend or whatever.
Checks out, yeah.
So Saturday night rolls around, and me and Johnny hit each other up. We start hanging out, and we're like, "Hey, let's go down to that house. Like, if they said they're staying there, like, let's just go, like, chill. We'll watch the sunset at the beach, all that kind of shit." We knock on the door of this house, and some old lady answers it, and we're like, "Hey, we bumped into these 3 girls. Like, they said they're staying here. They're like family friends from Chicago." And the old
Give 'em
lady
the names, whatever they were. Yeah.
the old lady says, "They've been dead for 10 years."
She doesn't say, "Hi, how can I help you?" They've been dead for 10 years. Yes, end of fortnight.
And then she threw an empty dish at us and then slammed the door, and that was it.
Yeah, I used to tell that
And then
story
we not
better.
asked the neighbor. And then we went to
I
the store.
skipped the
We
small
asked
talk.
The neighbor. We were like, he was out. He was taking his trash out, and we were walking back. And he was looking at us kind of funny. So we were like, "Huh? Yeah, what's that old hag's problem?" He goes, "What old hag? She died 20 years ago."
And we got stuck in a loop of finding people.
And
who
then you
said
went
they
down the
died.
road and it was like, he died in a tractor accident 40
And then
years
I got
ago.
home and I was talking about how this crazy story with me and Luke, and my pappy was like, "Luke died 47 years ago." It just kept escalating.
And then he went to bed and he
A ghost
asked
gave him
himself
a
what the fuck
blowjob.
happened. And then
And
ghost
I
said,
broke
"You
the curse."
dead."
That's how I broke the curse. I had to let that ghost blow me at that bus station. Yeah.
So
Anyways,
all of
out.
that ghost story is true except the old lady saying they died.
Wait,
is
so
how I
you
used
just
to tell the
met
story.
two drunk chicks like outside
Two,
one
possibly
day?
three drunk chicks. Yeah.
they had some weird story though about some guy.
it was weird,
that
yeah.
had been chasing them in his truck, and they were trying. They were trying to get.
They
It's
sort
some
of
bullshit story that fell apart very quickly because they just stood there in the road and talked to us for an hour casually. It's like clearly
Okay,
there
yes.
was like this story of you being in danger or whatever. It was like, is this just how you pick people up? Like it was very odd. Like,
so the encounter with them was very weird, and that's what led us to like later think like I remember Johnny the next time we hung out, which I don't even think was the next day, but the next time we hung out, we were like, yo, that seemed like we bumped into a bunch of ghosts or some shit.
yeah, did that really happen? Like we
Yeah.
had to make sure. I think
Yeah.
that's why we still remember is because we both had to make sure our stories matched.
Because we had like the brown out version of that
yeah.
story, and we had to piece it
And-
together the next time we hung out.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
And it was so weird. I'm still not sure that happened. Or that they were real. I mean, it happened.
Well,
because we have the same
I
memory.
mean, the crazy thing is,
But-
look
Yeah,
at
you
any of your
remembered the
memories. How
Fritos,
sure
yeah.
are you that any of them happen? It gets
Those
really
Fritos
slippery.
were so good.
Well, you guys remembered the Fritos, so at least some of the story is true.
We remembered him like halfway. Then we started biking to the beach, and we were going to watch the sunrise because it was like 3 to 4 a.m. at this point.
Yeah, at that point,
and that's when we
were just
remembered
like, fuck it.
Fritos.
Right.
Yeah,
As
Gosh.
as one
and
does.
and we even said. I remember being like, "That's how we made it back." I would have just fallen asleep on the side of the road and gotten arrested
Yeah,
for being a vagrant. But
for the Fritos.
the Fritos like gave me that boost I needed to bike home by 6 a.m. or whatever.
I used to.
enough.
It was a good day.
I used
It was
to
a good
tell
day.
that story to people. Like I sort of gave away the ending by laughing, and I forgot the best detail. I used to say that the old lady said, "Those girls died in an accident 10 years ago on this very road."
Right on that bend there.
Yeah, right on that bend there.
right around that corner.
And do
Yeah.
you know the number of people I told that story to that went, "Holy shit," because I performed it well.
Yeah.
Because
And they're like, "Whoa!"
if I were telling it not on a podcast and in front of people I think believe in ghosts, I would tell it with a little more gusto, and I would tell it in a way that I would deliver it with the energy that I'm still not okay with this story.
Right. You're
and
still
that it still
whoa,
disturbs me.
yeah.
And people were like,
So you're saying
Oh
that
my
you're a
God.
charlatan. That's what you're trying to tell me.
I mean, I would reveal right away because I remember doing that with my brother a lot. Like, if we were hanging out, I would always tell it when he was if he was within earshot,
Yeah.
and he would hear oh, Luke's going into the fucking ghost story of the girls on the road, and he would just look over and just be usually I would tell it to girls too because I don't know, is it easier to scare girls? I've found it's easier to scare girls.
Congratulations.
Wait, that sounds so wrong as a
Yeah, no.
soundbite.
Yeah, we're gonna isolate that and put it in our
Isolate
highlight
that,
reel.
put it-
Yeah.
I think
Put it on the soundboard.
Yeah.
I know in episode 16 on politics, I announced my running for office.
Oh,
If you-
we're way past
If
that.
you skipped episode
Yeah.
17, I officially withdrew
Yeah,
from the race.
I think you didn't even withdraw. You denounced yourself. You were like, "Yeah, I am not fit
You
for office."
unendorsed yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is fair.
I don't even have my own endorsement.
No, as you shouldn't. But that's probably for the best for everyone. You know? Yeah,
So that's me and Johnny's not real ghost story.
that's pretty good. I like it. I mean,
It was a good
At
story.
the very
but
least, it's a good regular story.
Not really.
I mean,
I mean, for us,
whatever.
if me and you are hanging out and we tell that story, it invokes those weird brownout memories where we're like, oh my God, yes, yes,
That's
yes.
right. Yeah, I remember that bike too. I think my dad has it.
no, I have it.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it's a good bike.
Woo!
It's down to one.
So
break.
so ghosts. We've covered a lot from where they come from to
Where
how
they go.
long have
Oh,
ghosts
shit.
been around?
We've been doing this for
to-
2 hours. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Well, I think. Do we have any final thoughts on ghosts? I mean, do you have anything that you feel like?
I got a question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you rather
Yeah.
be a ghost with some sort of vague, unredeemable, redeemability clause to get out of being a ghost, long term? But you're looking at, several lifetimes of being a ghost at least.
Yeah.
Or you're a genie in a lamp and you gotta find an owner that will wish you out of the lamp, wish you free, like Aladdin style.
What's
genie.
inside the lamp like? Like, am I in a lounge? Do I have my own like mini universe? How
Yeah,
does
is
that
it like
function?
I'm in the lamp, but like inside the lamp it feels like a big room?
Yeah, like how big is inside the lamp?
It's I think
Or is it like a
inside the
straitjacket?
lamp. I think inside the lamp is a universe. Like you can make a whole universe, but it's totally in your control.
Oh.
Like you can't make it random enough to make it too interesting, kind of in your control. You know, it's like lucid dreaming. Like it's still all your thoughts, so it's not ever really going to be.
I don't know,
like a
dude.
new
I have some really
experience
weird
or
lucid
anything.
dreams.
Wait,
what was the first option?
A ghost with like a vague.
A ghost. I like how you
redeemability.
went into Christopher Walken.
A ghost with a watch up his ass that killed him.
And he
And
doesn't
now-
even know.
I mean,
And
come
now
on.
The watch doesn't have any batteries. It's a ghost watch. And you gotta stick it up your ass every 10 years, and the watch never stops.
It winds itself.
It's like that's actually there's actually a little solar panel there, Chris. That's
Yeah, it's not an ass
Really?
stick up panel.
No, have you been putting those watches up your ass or anything? I have no idea what you're talking about.
Is that
What were we
is that
talking
the
about?
first?
We were talking about your would you rather. We were wondering if you could clarify.
Would you rather be a ghost with like the vague redeemability clause, you know, of unfinished business or whatever, but it's going to take you a few hundred years to pull it off, or you're a genie but you're trapped in the lamp. You're tied to your lamp and until the same rule as like Aladdin genie, which was I think whoever rubs the lamp gets 3 wishes, but you have to get one of your owners, your masters, to wish for your freedom. Which why would they waste a wish on?
Is that like Harry Potter house elf kind of thing, where it's like you need to somehow convince your owner to hand you like a piece of clothing and then you're free?
If you're but if you're that,
except it's even harder
you
because they have to actually
it's
wish
harder.
it. Mm-hmm. Whereas like in the Harry Potter example, they can just accidentally give you a sock. And then Dobby's a free elf. That was a bad Dobby.
I was gonna say,
right?
Can
So
you
you can give a
question.
You can give them a toilet, like a bedpan full of shit, and that's fine. But if you give them a dirty old sock, then they just leave.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's just the laws of like of J.K.
Of
Rowling
Elf?
of Elf World.
Cool, bro.
I guess I'd rather be the ghost. At least I have like freedom to like try my own methods to figure shit out, you know?
That's true, but you get unlimited power as a genie. You just have to convince your master to let you use it.
I know, but my
How do I
powers are
com-
not
how
really
do I com-
unlimited.
Yeah, how do I commune with my master if I'm in the jar?
That's what I mean.
Well,
They're
he
not
runs the
unlimited.
lamp, but you're a genie, so you can. You guys, I would be upset if you haven't learned any genie tricks at this point. You could totally monkey paw the motherfucker.
I don't know if I'm ready.
Use one of his wishes to help build towards your freedom, or to just like give yourself something interesting to do for a while.
But you never answered our question about how big this lamp is.
I did. I said it's kind of like a microverse, but
Okay, so it's like it's not going to be like claustrophobic.
No,
Like I'd freak out if it was like a small room.
Any people,
Yeah, I would too.
No, but
or a straitjacket,
you
Yeah.
can like
especially.
yeah, and you can
Or
create
both.
characters and stuff to talk to, I guess, but they're just projections of
What's
you know what
what's
I mean?
my
You're
blowjob
controlling them,
ability
so.
as a
So
ghost?
you would know they're not real, but you could create them to like help keep you sane.
Just if you want, but it's basically just like the genie version of a volleyball with a face painted on it, you know?
Fair enough, though. I mean, turns out that was a really important thing for Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
So,
And no, Joe.
so
How many,
much so-
how many times do you think you
Joe.
banged the what?
You can, yeah, that's what I want to answer your first
Yeah.
Do you
gross
think he
question.
cut a
'Cause you
hole in
can't-
the ball and banged that hole, or did he just like kind of like make out with the ball as he just kind of like rubbed one out?
Yeah, if
I don't
anything,
know.
he would- if anything, he would take the ball and put it on top of like a straw, like you know, a scarecrow type character he made, and they would like double team some fruit he found or something, and be like, "Yeah, buddy," you know, so he
Yeah.
could do something.
Oh, so
with
it was his like gangbang bud.
Yeah.
So, but in the genie version of this, you can actually like
I can give ghost
create
blowjobs?
like virtual reality versions of this.
That's what I want to answer. Yeah, but I want to answer Joe's first gross question. No, you don't get ghost blowies or genie blowjobs. No,
None of it.
You can't get
No,
even
no,
virtual reality
neither case.
blowjobs?
No, you can, yeah, but you don't. He was trying to be like, I just knew where you were going with it. You don't get extras in either case.
No, I was trying to like start my own side business of like ghost.
I know you were,
PGs.
and you don't. And no, you can't.
To raise
you
money.
can't be,
Yeah, and
you can't
awareness.
Be turning genie. You can't be turning genie tricks
And awareness
by
for
making
what?
genie
Awareness
sex
for what?
robots.
I haven't decided yet.
Oh yeah, just awareness for any cause.
I've never given a
awareness-
ghost blowjob yet. I'll know
beach
once I do.
recycling.
Yeah,
Awareness for beach recycling.
No, Luke. Awareness for his ghost blowjob business.
yeah.
He wants
It's
awareness.
it's a
So he can make more
self-sustaining
money.
economy.
Positive feedback loop.
Yeah, right.
The more ghost blowjobs you get, the more
and my
advertising
slogan will
you
be
get
the
for
more
ghost
the more you
blowjobs.
ghost.
See,
That's a sentence.
Luke gets it. Luke's on board.
Yeah.
Luke, you're on the board.
I'm on board. What?
No, you're on the board of the Ghost Blowy Corporate.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I think Joe, we should both pick the same one and start a ghost blowjob business.
It's
Yeah,
called,
I'll take
it's
the
called-
left, you take the right. I don't know
it's
what
called-
that means, but I think it's a
No,
good
the company's
breakdown.
called Go Blow.
Probably.
Guys,
We film it all.
Or
They don't-
political
but-
spectrum.
They won't know this,
Yeah.
but we film it all
Wow, that got
We
dark
film
real
for
quick.
Patreon.
all of it.
Oh,
And the
God.
company's GHOBLO, Go Blow. And that's what we'll call it. It'll be very high end, very tasteful.
Go blow with GHO.
Yeah,
It rhymes, so
that's
it's
what
fine.
that's called. Yeah.
Oh God.
I'm in. All right.
No,
well,
yeah,
you have
that's-
our answer, Johnny.
Yeah.
All right. So that's all. You asked if I had anything to else add.
Wait, I
Oof,
got
that
one more
sentence
fact,
fell
Johnny.
apart.
Did you know Harry
Okay.
Houdini's death was actually on Halloween?
Was it really?
Whoa.
What do you think
Do
about
know
that?
how he died?
That's like enough to make me go.
Come on.
You
No,
know?
it's enough to make
No,
me go.
Come on, universe. Are you
Come
winking
on.
at me? That
Yeah.
kind of thing.
You know how he died?
Why are you reaching with your left hand?
Let's put something down.
Oh,
No, I have a real story. I'm not hanging up on you.
okay.
Here,
I thought you were
both
hanging
hands
up.
and
I'm ready,
be-
baby.
Oh, no.
I know.
wait.
I know.
Oh, wait.
I figured you guys.
Wait, we
were
have a
so
new
ready.
system. Johnny literally just put his hands up like we're arresting him. We have
Yeah.
this hang-up game.
Should I use
And-
my foot?
I want to
If
get
a-
this story.
If
in
any
about
one of our
Harry
hands are
Houdini's
missing,
AIDS.
then it's
Yeah.
suspicious that we're just trying to fuck with each other and hang up.
Yeah. Although I do. That's what I was just gonna say. We still have feet.
Johnny's
His
showing
foot's
us
waving on the screen.
All right. I believe you, Johnny. Show us
So-
both your hands and tell us your story.
Yeah.
and all feet.
Show us all hands and feet.
All digits on deck, please.
No, he so he was at a party. He was famous for a trick he could do where he could take a punch directly to the stomach without reacting. And it's because it's a thing in martial arts that if you tense right before as the impact comes, you know what I mean? The whole and your muscles are strong enough.
Yeah.
The whole opposite but equal reaction
Oh,
thing kicks
cool.
in. So you could flex against the punch if it's not, too tough, which a sucker punch is, you don't have to hit someone too hard in the gut to double them over. So he was known for this as a parlor trick he could do at parties and stuff. And he was at some party and some drunk asshole had heard about it or whatever. It was like, hey, Houdini just sucker punched him in the gut when he wasn't ready for it. And apparently he was also, this is the theory part of
Wait,
it.
so somebody at a party was just like, "Hey, Houdini, boom!"
Yeah. Hey Houdini, fuck
Yeah.
you.
Hey, do the trick, boom, and punched him in the gut. And he wasn't.
You want to do a trick?
He wasn't-
Boom.
It wasn't a planned time.
Oh,
to do
I know
it, though.
exactly the type of person that would do that.
I know several
Yeah.
exact types of persons who would do that. Yeah, for sure.
That shit used to be a lot worse back in the day. Like Curly from the Three Stooges, people used to just throw shit at him when they saw him in public.
fucked
So you
up.
used to see him get hit in the head with wrenches and sledgehammers.
Oh my
So they were
God.
like, hey,
Dave Chappelle thought
Curly,
he had
and
it
try
bad.
to yes, try to hit him in the head with a bottle and all laugh. And it's like, dude, that's
Yeah.
a real person.
That's just assault.
Those were all rubber on the
Yeah.
movie, dude. Anyways, so he got punched, and he was also, they think, one of the ways he did a lot of his escape tricks is he had the ability to vomit, without, just vomit on cue.
On command.
With his hands tied, he could just make himself puke, empty his stomach.
Okay.
Which is possible. There's people that can do that. And so he was able to swallow keys, get tied up in a straitjacket, and spit the key out, and do that kind
Better
of thing.
than Job from
So-
Arrested Development.
Way
or
better,
me, or
yeah.
you.
Yeah. So he had a key in his stomach when the guy punched him, and so it drove the
Wait,
key and cut him open.
He just had like
He
a
died-
spare
he
key
died.
in his stomach just in
Well,
case.
no, because it
All
was
magicians have a spare
It was
key.
Halloween, and he was going to do a trick later.
I see.
So he had eaten the key earlier, so everyone would be like, yeah, he couldn't have, like, I saw him do it. He didn't have the key. He came out of that fucking box we threw in the ocean. I don't know how he did it. He's amazing. And it's like, yeah, he fucking swallowed it, spit it up, and did the...
Wait.
But no, instead it just ripped through his kidney or whatever they did.
Wait, but do
died.
they
don't know
have
if I
like
turned
universal keys that they throw up? Like, how do they know that key's going to fit the lock?
I think it's the one with the little
Well,
two
it's planned,
prongs.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's planned. Yeah, and the keys were simpler back. Look at old-timey keys. They were all gigantic and had like one or two things. Our keys have like six
Yeah,
now.
you could pick the fuck
So
out of those
I don't know
locks.
specifically how Harry Houdini did it, but I was listening to Neil Tyson interview Penn and Teller.
Nice.
And one interesting thing is Penn and Teller were like,
Teller
they
what?
were talking about like when you fool someone, right? We use that phrase all the time, but what you're doing is you're making a fool out of them. It is implied in
Right,
this
they are
saying.
the fool. They have been fooled upon.
The implication is that they're the fool because you fooled them.
I know something that you don't know
Yeah.
now. Because
And he
I
said-
did something and you don't know how I did it. And I do.
Exactly.
yeah.
And he said the job of a musician, of a magician. Whoa, that's a weird brain fart, right?
Yeah,
Did you say musician?
I said musician, but like,
No, you said musician.
oh, that's even
No,
weirder.
you said fuck.
The job of a magician,
You
he
said
said,
musician.
is to take that relationship that exists, that idea that like you're making a fool out of somebody, and make it playful and make it fun. And that's not the easiest thing to do. Is to, like
No.
the fact that you're making somebody foolish, right? Like
Yeah.
nobody wants to be foolish, right? But you have to make that fun. And he said the way they do it is some magicians will want to imply that there's an amount of magic going on behind the scenes or something.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we actually have some magical ability. For Penn and Teller, they say we are very skilled, just like
Yeah.
Neil Tyson might be very skilled in astrophysics, and just
We
like
are at shooting ghost pornos.
Gil Shaham might be very skilled at playing the violin. We are very skilled at taking advantage of the human mind and fooling it. And that's all we're doing. So they tell people up front in their show. And one of the things that's cool is they say we never lie to our audience. So one of their famous
But that's
tricks
exactly
is
what
like,
a liar would say.
no, one of their famous tricks is they catch a bullet in their teeth.
Yeah.
And when they set up the trick, they don't say, we're going to shoot a bullet across the stage. They say, we are going to send a bullet across the stage with this magic wand. And they pull out a gun. And it's a way to, like, they're not lying. Like, obviously they're not firing a gun at the other guy's mouth with the bullet, right? Like, the bullet's going to
What?
be...
I always thought he was really quick.
Exactly. That, but
And
and
flossed.
it looks... They also do this really cool trick with a nail gun where...
Yeah.
Shoot
Have you
each
seen
other
that
in the
one?
face.
No, like the nail gun, like there's like blank spaces and then series of nails, but it's in like a random pattern.
Yeah.
So it's like 4 nails, then 3 blanks, then 2 nails, then 1 blank, then 3
God,
nails.
It's Russian
And
nailette.
he's
Seemingly random. It's
well,
not random.
of course, it seems random, and to you watching, you can't come up with a pattern, right? And the whole time, it's a very vaudeville kind of thing. He's just talking to you and seeming like he's not paying attention to the nail gun at all. But at the same time, he's like going, like he's nailing into the wooden board that they have. Boom, 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 boom. And then he puts his hand out and nails into that, but it's timed perfectly for the blank, And then finally it finishes with him putting the nail gun to his partner's, head, and, it happens to be a blank. And it is actually dangerous in the sense that, like, even if it's not random, he still has to perform it correctly because there are real
Yeah.
nails coming out.
Right.
If he fucks up there, it's not like a lip sync failure.
Yeah.
It's serious.
Yeah.
consequences.
Well, that's like
It's not like a video
Serious.
editing problem. It's like a nail
Yeah.
in your
Yeah.
partner's head problem.
You just murdered somebody
Yeah.
in front of people
Well,
on what
talk about
was
a throwback
nice
to the
night.
beginning
Is
of
now
the
a
episode
murder.
when Johnny, you were talking
Is now
about
a snuff
professional wrestling, and it's like I remember I actually knew we grew up with a professional wrestler, or he became a professional wrestler, and I remember I actually took a communications class with him in undergrad, and when the first week we went around and was like, oh yeah, like what do you do, what do you study, and he mentioned that he's a professional wrestler, or he was training to be at the time, and the professor was like, yeah, so I gotta ask, is it all real? And he said, well, here's the thing. When you get hit with a chair in the fucking head, you're getting hit in the head with a fucking chair.
Yeah.
Like, you can make it look... basically,
Is it a
what
real
he's saying...
fight? That's a different question
Right,
than whether
exactly.
you're getting hit with a
Yeah,
chair
and he's like,
in the
and you
head.
can do things... And he said you can do things to, like, block it so that you don't get too hurt, but you're still getting hit with a chair.
There's boxing matches that are determined before they start.
That's
know?
illegal, Johnny.
Well, I didn't mean professional boxing, obviously, of course. I mean, off-grid boxing, not definitely all boxing. Wink, wink. Not all boxing. No, but seriously, there are some that like you decide it beforehand because there's way more money to be made for everybody. But you still have to fight the fight. You still have to punch someone in the head, and you get punched in the head.
Right. Whatever the setup is, it could all go wrong because one person could get punched way too hard in the head.
Can I just say, since we're going really far off ghosts, we're talking about boxing, this is a good time to mention the beer I'm drinking.
Yeah, what is that?
I just have to bring it up. It's from Stillwater Artisanal in Georgia, I think.
Oh, that was a really detailed burp, dude.
That was a really good one. I apologize if that offended anyone. No, this is Connecticut. Sorry. Stillwater Artisanal. And it's called Critical Thinking Imperial Stout.
Oh, Critical Thinking. Perfect fucking beer for a topic on
critical thinking,
on ghosts and skepticism. What, by the way,
the
this is my
label's crazy.
favorite Neil Tyson thing, speaking of critical thinking. And it has to do everything with ghosts and pretty much anything. His main idea is always about scientific literacy. The most important part of being scientifically literate, science is not the body of knowledge that we have about facts in the universe, right? Science is about the process of obtaining new knowledge, right? So science is more about how do you think, not what do you think, right? So the scientifically literate approach would be, how do you interpret information that comes your way? So whether it be a ghost claim or whatever, right? Let's say I knock on your door and I say, Joe, I have these magic balls. Let me make them crystals. We've had too much ghost blowjob talk today.
Hey, Joe,
say,
I got some magic balls. They're the
Joe,
best
I got some
magic balls.
If you just teabag them in your mouth real quick, you'll cure your cancer or whatever. All right, so I say I have...
You know, I just realized we're in a drunk tank without even realizing it.
I know. Well, we're right on that border.
Yeah.
It's what are those kind of borders where the transition is like it's sort of like, unless you make it happen, it starts to bend and then eventually it will break.
Yeah.
Like, we still haven't broken. Like, we've been in episodes where
we've been on the trampoline just kind of jiving.
But the fabric between thunk tank and drunk tank is still bending right now.
Yeah.
Although it's starting to get structurally unsound.
Yeah, it's like those bridges that blow in the wind.
Yeah.
You know, and you know it's going to break eventually.
Yeah, exactly.
Because bridges shouldn't blow in the wind. But
So,
here we are.
I'll finish with this Neil Tyson thing, and since Johnny's gone,
Where
I think
did he
he's
go?
gone. I don't know if his headphones are
Wait,
off. Maybe he'll hear our plan.
He might be ghosting us.
He could be ghosting us, but
I feel bad just hanging up on him. I can't do it.
well, let's make a plan to hang up on him.
Oh,
I was
that's
just
a good
going to say
idea.
about the Neil Tyson thing, the science literacy. Somebody comes to your door and they say, I have these crystals. When you rub them together and say this chant, you can cure your sickness, right?
Right, yeah.
So, of course, to be totally gullible is to say, great, how much do they cost? I'll take 4 of them, you know?
Yeah.
To be totally cynical or overly skeptical
It's to
would
shoot
be-
them in the fucking head.
No, it would be to say, like, go fuck yourself, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'd be closer to saying go fuck yourself, but to be the right balance between skeptical and gullible would be to say, I have more questions before I make this purchase, sir.
Right.
How do these crystals work? You know, your testicles are involved. Well, that makes me
You
suspicious.
smoke them and you go to the moon.
Well, see, I would buy
those
those
crystals
crystals.
work,
but,
I would
you know.
definitely buy those crystals.
So, Johnny, just when you left, Joe was he had a cool ghosty thing that happened to a friend of his. Just tell I stopped him at the beginning, but tell the beginning of it.
So
Okay.
we were down in Tennessee, right?
That makes sense. I left to pee because Luke was making some point about science or something. Nothing to do with ghosts. You know, we usually go way off the fucking rails. But because of that, fuck, did you get to hear them at the end of this when I'm done talking? Because they beat me to it. They fucking got me. Well done, says. But I should have seen it. I peed a lot. It was a lot. You don't need to know that. And this is the end of the episode. It went on for a bit longer than it should have, but yeah, they're gonna be like, oh, we got him, whatever. I just should have hung up. I should have left to pee, and I should have hung up before I sat down. Fucked up, but I'll get him next time. Should have been drinking this Critical Thinking Imperial Stout from Stillwater Artisanal. It's an interesting beer. At 11%, it definitely threw me off my top Genie game. So I'll see you guys next time, you pieces of shit. Oh, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. This stout is making me aggressive. Everybody, farewell. Till next time. Bye.
Nice. We won, right?
Down in Tennessee, baby. That's how you get them.
Down in Tennessee, going on a ghost hunt. So I think ghosts.
We did it.
I think, Joe, you and I were at a bar a couple weeks ago,
and saw
I was
the
like,
ghost. Yeah,
I was like, all right, I think we just did like the oceans episode or the politics one, and I was like,
politics,
Joe, let's like just make like a list of like episodes we can do
were
in
like,
the future.
Ghosts. We got to.
And
do
what
ghosts.
the first one you said was ghosts.
Yeah, I was feeling it. Yeah.
So no ghost hit us here, but I think the reason that like I thought like, hey, that could be a cool conversation is just because it brings up all the important aspects of skepticism and science literacy and how to think correctly, all that shit. Yeah. And it's also just funny because nobody thinks about like, do ghosts get horny? Do ghosts like jerk off? Do ghosts have sex? Any of that shit. Nobody thinks about that.
It's fun to ask those practical questions, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like,
do ghosts poop? Do they wipe? Do they have toilet paper? Do they go to the ghost
how many times do they have
store?
to wipe? Yeah.
Do they have ghost birth control? Do ghosts have babies? Like they don't,
Well, now you're just being an asshole.
Well, now am I being unreasonable? You're the one that said ghosts exist. Now it's unreasonable for me to ask you whether ghosts have to take birth control or whether ghosts jerk off. Like why is it unreasonable to ask that considering you asserted that ghosts exist?
Yeah. I kind of like the place. It's funny because honestly, like going into this episode, I hadn't really thought about it too much just because I don't think about ghosts too much on a daily basis, honestly. Again, and I think that's a point that we've covered where it's like, you still have to live your life. You still have to go to work. You still have to find joy in life and, do your own stuff. And
not show up like late to work because you were thinking about ghosts.
Exactly,
that's not a valid excuse.
Yeah, because I was waiting for a ghost to come and blow me.
Yeah.
Like, that's not going to fly.
Oh, God, I want to use that one.
God. But I think actually a really interesting point that we came to that I really enjoyed was this idea of thinking about the fact, at least for me, that, Stephen Fry. Do you know Stephen Fry?
It sounds familiar.
He's an English comedian. You would actually really like him.
Is he the guy that... well, okay, I think I know who it is, yeah.
He's like, I think he's a pretty... So, actually, I was about to say he's a pretty avid atheist, but he actually describes himself as a flimpist. And when asked what a flimpist is, he says, I don't care. Like, I don't care about religion.
Is it just like a purposely, like, made-up word kind of thing?
Yeah, he's
nice.
like, I'm a flimpist.
I'm down with that, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't... He's like, I don't think about religion. I don't think about God. I just live my life as a good person. And, I do whatever it is I do, which isn't even me. Like, I don't even consider myself that, but I really like this idea of just getting to this place, like we've talked about healthy skepticism, but also, not leaning too much towards cynicism. And again, just thinking about it in terms of what we've talked about before with people, whether or not they believe in ghosts, like that's not a determining factor for me in how I assess somebody.
It's not a deal breaker.
No, by any means, because again, and it's like I said, whether that's ghosts or that's religion, I mean, I consider myself as, however we decide to define spiritual in different aspects to some extent, and I'm much more interested in people who like vibe with me on those actual tangible layers, right? And who actually really, they ask good questions about the practical issues of life, right?
Sure. And look, the truth is there when it comes to questions like are ghosts real or anything like that.
But who cares is my point.
One, who cares?
Yeah.
So I think it's not even a good question. Like,
I don't think it
compared
is.
to all the questions that one could pose to the universe.
Yeah, I'm not concerned with it. Yeah, exactly.
Although, look, obviously, we already addressed this, but the reason it's such an issue for people is the question of what happens when you die is obviously such a mysterious and important and consuming question to humans. And I'm right there with you. I wrote this in my phone a while back that I think I've intellectually understood death, but I haven't emotionally integrated that understanding, right?
That's a really interesting
I'm still terrified
point.
of it
Yeah.
for irrational reasons that I can't quite parse out. But intellectually, I've gone under, when I had my wisdom teeth out, I had full anesthesia.
Yeah.
And like I felt what it is like to be conscious and then to feel nothingness and then to wake up again.
But that's just going to sleep too.
Yes, but going to sleep feels very different. Have you ever had anesthesia?
No, I'm terrified of it now that you mention it. Yeah.
It's so different.
Really?
Because when you go to sleep and you wake up, you feel the passage of time.
I don't necessarily.
You don't feel it accurately, but you feel that something happened. And when you go into deep sleeps, you have less of that. And when you are in very shallow sleep, you have more of that. Mm-hmm. But there's no way to describe the black nothingness. I did that last time drunk.
Yeah.
There's no way to describe the black nothingness of anesthesia unless you've gone through it. Like it's so crazy. Like, and 2 hours went by for a surgery, yet I was gone and I was there.
Yeah. Well, that was I think we brought this up in an earlier episode, and I won't spoil it, but there was a great scene in Game of Thrones where a character died and got brought back, and they were like, "What did you see? Like, what was in the great beyond?" And the character just was horrified when he realized the answer, which was nothing.
Yeah.
I saw absolutely nothing. I didn't go anywhere. I just died and woke up, you know?
Yeah. And I think that nothingness is rightfully terrifying for people.
Yeah.
But
well,
I also
boring.
think it's
boring,
why
right?
you see these issues of muddy thinking and lack of skepticism in a lot of areas of life. But I would say it's extremely pervasive in the ghost area for that reason.
Well, I think the ghost area is conducive to drawing that in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because like
fair enough.
There's any number of things you could drop your skepticism meter down for. Mm-hmm. And I think it comes down to what I said earlier, which is when you want to believe something, you naturally turn your skepticism down.
Right.
And look, that's fine. I turn my skepticism down every time I watch a movie, you know? It's okay to turn your
Suspension
skepticism
of
down.
disbelief. Yeah.
But
that's like the great conceit of any fiction.
Sure.
Yeah.
And there's no problem there. The one problem I have is when you're screwing with other people. So if you're a medium and you're talking to somebody whose relatives died, I don't think that's good for a few reasons. One, like, look, they're mourning and you might think you're helping them, but they have a memory in their mind of their deceased loved one, and that memory is a pure version of what that person was. I'm sorry, but they're probably not talking to the deceased loved one, right? So whether they believe they're talking to them or not, whether they're purposely deceiving and collecting money by saying I can talk to the dead, it doesn't matter. Like you're tainting the truth of that memory of the deceased loved one with made up bullshit.
Yeah, but even if that's true, oh god, this gets in. I was about to start talking about placebo effect.
Yeah, I mean, humans are weird, right? Fuck.
Well, they're complex.
And there's ghosts. This is, I think, we knew ghosts were just like conspiracy theories.
There's too much to talk about.
Topics like conspiracy theories and ghosts. The reason why I think they're so good as topics is because when you pick apart and like claw away at what they are, they cut to the very core of what it means to be a human, and all of our biases and all of our flaws and all of our muddy thinking and all of our wishful thinking.
But that's interesting to do. I mean, that really should teach us something about ourselves.
I personally find pleasure from getting closer to the core of what it means to be a human. And, you know, I think, like you said, when you wake up in the morning and you think, should I watch Netflix or should I go to the beach and collect some garbage, right? Yeah. It's like let's say the Netflix thing is neutral, right? Yeah. It's not even bad. It's just neutral.
Yeah.
And the collecting garbage thing is like a good thing. And it's not even like the most good thing you can do. It's just a good thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But like what makes a human choose that?
Right.
And if you have to
There's
believe
a lot
in
of different factors
God
for
to
sure,
choose that, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it would be cooler if you could manage to do that good thing without thinking that you're doing it because like a daddy figure in the sky is watching you.
And some people might do it because of both, or one, or the other. People are complex.
And also people don't always know that for every action that a human being does, there's more information that went into that action than the human being itself knows about. So therefore, the conclusion is we are more complex than we even know.
Yeah. Oh,
and
for
I
sure.
think, you know, topics like ghosts, like conspiracy theories, like any of these things are just cool because in a weird, like objective sense, we can use the topic to sort of dissect human.
Right. Yeah. Human psychology.
Psychology better.
For sure.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So before you heard us here ranting, you probably heard Johnny being like, oh...
I think he's probably just like, fuck those guys.
You know, excuse me, I'm just going to finish the podcast real quick and put my dick in a donut.
He did talk a lot about putting his dick in.
He said it once, to be fair, but
that's too many times. Yeah.
So we won this one, the hang-up game.
We've been winning a lot lately. I feel bad.
Well, you know why?
Yeah.
Because I can keep track of how many beers Johnny's had. And I wait till he cracks like that final beer where he's going to be a little slow to the trigger.
Right, yeah.
I like the version of the game where we put up our hands.
That's good. That's gold.
Because like if you have a real story,
but you know he's gonna get. He's like in the coming episodes, he's gonna get so drunk that he's gonna try to do it with his foot.
I know,
and he's just gonna knock over a beer.
Yeah, he's just gonna knock a beer into the computer and destroy everything. Yeah.
So after you've heard Johnny, you've heard us, and of course we're the winners, and
we're the best.
We're the best. Yeah,
and
I would say so.
You know, go home tonight. Maybe you're listening to this in the car.
Yeah.
And
thank you for joining us first. If you've made it this far,
oh hell yeah,
kudos. I'm going to give you a little round of applause. Yeah. Thank you very much. It's been a journey. I feel like we've learned something tonight.
I think so.
Yeah, you still have to walk to your car through fucking ghost cemetery.
I'm terrified. Why do you think I'm not ending the podcast?
I would be just as... I'm glad I have to stay in Ghost House. I'm down with Ghost House.
I was almost going to try and do a seance for this episode.
No, you weren't.
Well, I meant like just light a candle and say Harry Houdini.
I have incense.
I don't want to anymore. It's getting to that point where I'm actually scared.
Yeah.
Not like actually scared, but you know what I mean. Like
I know what you mean.
Part of your brain is like...
let me not fuck with maybe evil spirits, right? Yeah. Like, why would you? Like,
exactly.
I don't want to piss off
And I think that
spirits.
says something about when you want to find out if anybody believes in ghosts. You know that they say, like, if you look in the mirror and say, here, piggy, piggy, pig, pig, that, like, this, and you say it 3 times, that, like, the pig murderer guy will, like, show up behind your shower curtain.
From, like, American Horror Story?
Yeah.
I didn't hear that.
I've never said it 3 times in a mirror.
Because why would you?
One, why would I? But what that means is that even if I were to say publicly, there is no chance a pig murderer guy could show up in your shower. If I truly believe that, I would say it.
Yeah.
And I don't say it, which means I'm holding out, even if it's 0.1%, I'm holding out the chance that a pig murderer could show up in my shower. And that's what I have to say about ghosts. Boom. Done.
Well, thank you for joining us. Like, share, and subscribe. We are on Patreon.
Hopefully our audio sounds pretty good. We got some...
we got a new setup here.
Thanks to Patreon and a gift card. And
if you have proof of ghosts, please share it.
Oh, yeah.
You can comment. You can either on YouTube.
I'll probably
or on
assemble
Podbean.
my notes
Yeah.
into like a short like.
Oh, on our blog,
half-page
yeah,
blog post,
you
yeah.
can comment on our blog.
I'm gonna like put the links there and kind of.
I would love to hear some pro ghost arguments for sure.
And I'll film some ghost porn, etc.
Well, you're that's only Patreon subscribers. So if you want to see that,
Oh yeah.
you're not gonna see it, but you have a better chance of seeing it.
Non-Patreon people will see like just before the ghost penis.
You definitely won't see ghost penis if you're not a Patreon.
They get blurred on the non-Patreon versions.
I'm not gonna say what I was gonna say next.
All right, thanks for listening. Peace.
And we'll see you next week. Thank you.